throughout the show as well. Wanted to at least address this first because it has been such a conversation that we've had the last couple of days in us talking about it, many people around the NFL and locally, Chiefs fans talking about it, and the penalty that was given to Chris Jones late in the game against the Colts, and a game-changing penalty that was called. So last night, about 10:15 or so, Pro Football Talk put out their story of post-game report from referee Sean Smith says Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones used, quote, disturbing language, quote, that has, quote, no place in professional football, end quote. The report, however, does not specify what Jones said to draw a game-changing penalty. Chris Jones responded to that tweet with an emoji, a cap emoji, so like a baseball hat. Just a hat, a cap emoji, which essentially is lie. The baseball hat emoji is that somebody is capping, somebody is lying. It is just straight up falsehood. And Chris Jones, that's all he had to put. Now, he can then say to the league, whoa, hey, what are you talking about? I was just putting a baseball hat there. I was just saying, like, hey, let's put a cap on this whole thing and move on. Let's just simply call it a day.
Put a lid on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't find a lid emoji, so I just used I had no idea that this was a term that was used for saying something is just a lie. No idea. So Chris Jones, while not saying post-game what he said, is flat out saying that the official calling it disturbing language that has no place in professional football is just a lie. Again, I don't know if we'll ever find out what was said. Maybe Andy Reid today, since the post-game report has been now issued to the NFL, since that has been filed to the NFL by referee Sean Smith. Does Andy Reid now and the coaching staff, do they know what he said? Because it's not going to change anything, certainly. It probably just will make people even more annoyed by the whole thing. So, I mean, I don't even know what to gain from it other than just find other ways to be annoyed and mad and frustrated with the whole thing. Because even if he says that, well, he told him that he was not very good at football, be like, all right, well, that's absurd. Or if it's like, well, there were a lot of curse words that were used and Chris Jones was actually out of line, and be like, well, you know what, Chris Jones shouldn't have said anything anyway. And, I guess it would be placing your frustration either if Chris Jones really was out of line, then that's your frustration, or if the referee just wanted to be involved in the game because he wasn't doing enough.
I think there are two things. One is exactly that. So if you know the content, you know exactly what Chris Jones says. If you know that, we would all know, everyone in their own heart would know whose fault was really at hand here. If Chris Jones called him a mother bleeper and he got 15 yards for that, I would say a large majority of us would say you cannot throw a flag for that. If the ref comes out and he says, lists off the horrible things that he says, that makes us all blush. And we go, okay, you know what? I was giving Chris Jones the benefit of the doubt. I didn't think he was going to say those horrible things. He maybe should get suspended for a game. Then we could all have that. Mm-hmm. But you know what we do not know now? Do you know what has not been added to this conversation?
I don't.
Correct! Nothing. Anything. Okay. Because the only reason that flag was thrown was for Matt Ryan's feelings. If you want to say, hey, for taunting, right? We don't want you going up and jangling around your jimmies in somebody else's face because we think that's bad sportsmanship, okay? Well, fine. You know who that's bad sportsmanship for? The kids watching the game. You don't want to set that example. Nobody heard what Chris Jones said. So whatever he said either needed to make Matt Ryan's face turn a pale pink, or we at least ought to know where we could direct the ire. Because if Chris Jones deserved it, then 15 yards and we can all dump on 95 all week. If he didn't, we can say refereeing needs some help here. But the one thing that is just always good for the consumer, at least, is transparency. Mm-hmm. It's not always good for whoever's in power. It's not always good for the top of the pyramid. But for us to know where we should be pointing our fury at this point, we need to know what what it actually was that turned the game. If it's taunting and it's visual, we make those judgment calls all the time. We say, okay, he stood over Matt Ryan for 2 seconds. Is that worthy of a flag? I don't know. But at least you and I could sit in here and debate it. And you could say, that's taunting. You can't do that. Think of the kids. And I could say, it's not taunting. He didn't pull his pants down. This is fine. But a silent microphone, a microphone-less penalty does nobody any good. This is not instructive for anyone else in the league either. Nobody else in the Chiefs or the Colts or the rest of the NFL learns anything from this because they haven't found out what this magic word is that Sean Smith says you can't say. It might have been justified. That's possible. We will never know. That reflects horribly on the refereeing, I think.
So while you were talking there, I was listening because some interesting points. I was also trying to fast forward through the actual full game for a point, just to see because I don't remember what the video showed at the time when Chris Jones tackles him and before the flag was thrown. Because because you're talking about the only people that were hurt in this was Matt Ryan's feelings ultimately in this whole thing. And so now I'm watching it. So it does show live. The camera is on Chris Jones and Matt Ryan standing up. Matt Ryan and Chris Jones looking at each other. And as Matt Ryan is starting to walk away, they go to replay. So all you see is Jones and Matt Ryan looking at each other. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look like any words are being exchanged, but they're looking at each other, and that's it. So the children were protected by that replay.
Yeah, right.
So when we think of the children, whoever was controlling and producing that broadcast at CBS was thinking of the children and going, no, take camera 5, take replay.
He might rip his head off.
Yeah, he's going to say something. His lips are going to move. Thank God we got to the replay of the sack where 3 240-pound men land on top of Matt Ryan and crush him. Oh, we're thinking of the children. Thank goodness. So I think that does add context in Chris Jones publicly now saying that's a lie.
Well, and also, so in this story, quote, Smith penalized Jones for unsportsmanlike conduct. The source says that Smith, in hindsight, believes he also should have referenced taunting. Here's the thing. If you should have referenced taunting, first of all, say that in the postgame. Say that when Adam Teicher's beating your door down. If it should have been taunting, throw the flag and call it taunting, because I know what I would have started with. Holy bleep, you cannot call taunting there. He stood and talked for too long. That's nothing. If you say, well, it's disgusting language, okay, well, then there is a chance that that's justified. There's no chance that was justified for a 15-yard taunting penalty. But if he called them something heinous and some section of words that we don't use in polite society anymore, then we could have that discussion. But we're never going to have enough information to have an informed version of this conversation because the NFL decided to make it that way.
I should have referenced taunting as such a CYA revisionist history. It is such a no. I mean, I know I said it was, but it was really taunting because taunting can be not even using words. That to me is why it's a CYA. Because what the Pittsburgh Steelers rookie linebacker last year, when we first all got an indication of just how much they're going to emphasize, is when he made the sack and he looked over at the other sideline for like 2 seconds and then ran the other way. He didn't say anything, but he taunted without using words. So the official saying, I should have referenced taunting, to me, is CYA of him saying, yeah, those words didn't rise to the level of unsportsmanlike conduct.
Right.
But I feel like he stared at him too long, so he taunted him, and that's why I threw the flag. I didn't reference it. I should have referenced it. That's such a CYA revisionist history. And also taunting, again, I mentioned this yesterday or maybe even Monday, that, what's a bigger taunt? After you sack somebody, both teams are walking off the field, you stare at the other guy, or a kicker misses a crucial kick up for a 34-yarder, and the other team goes and taps the guy on the head and says, thank you, and then runs the other way.
I think that's case in point, though, because we can all look at that Steelers example or your juxtaposition there, and we can all say, that Steelers rookie never should have gotten flagged. Everyone knew that except for the referee. Everyone.
Except for the one that had control of it.
The guy with the flag in his pocket.
That's right.
You can say, should there have been a taunting penalty called for the tap on Amendola's helmet? Should there not have? Whatever. But with taunting at least implies that it is visually evident to everyone who has a camera. That's it. We can at least judge it honestly and say, that's a good call, that's a bad call. It's like pass interference. It's open to interpretation, but at least we can see it. You can't get flagged for interfering with the pass if you're running down beside the receiver and you're yelling, drop it, you're going to drop it, uh-oh, you're going to drop it. That's not pass interference. That's language. Those are different.
What if they did call pass interference for yelling at somebody? Drop it, ha, oh, Amir, the safety's coming over. Oh, he dropped it. Whoa. That was abusive language.
You're not very fast. This isn't hard for me at all. Uh-oh, what? Hey, still with you in your pocket.
He was interfering with the pass and his ability to catch it because he was talking to him. That's an easy 15-yarder. So it's the Supreme Court's definition of porn. You know it when you see it?
Call it roughing the passer because Matt Ryan's feelings got roughed.
Roughing the passer's emotions is what that was.
That's good.
All right, 913-912-4810. Did want to pass that along as well. We have, just as a real quick before we go to break, and I'm going to talk about the AFC because the question I'm going to ask is the AFC really all that much different than what we thought it was going to be 3 weeks ago before the season started? Looking at the standings, things like that. I want to ask that question and get into it just a little bit before we talk with Tom Watson later on in this hour. But we have boots on the ground in Tampa with an idea of what's going on. So do you have an update as to what the latest might be there? And now I don't know how much this might impact the game or not, but it certainly seems early indications might be good news for the city.
Yeah, and also, hey, Jason, wants to know, I just saw your text from about 10 minutes before the show. Sorry I didn't get back to you.
All good, man.
I was working on my reporting from my sources in Tampa.
That's even better.
That is, of course, my immediate family. My mom has sent out some pictures of their Bay Area. They've evacuated farther inland. But so it says more recently now, the storm has looked like it's moved south, and the eye of the storm is now hitting more towards Sarasota. This is good stuff for Tampa and that very directional region. It is going to be tough for Sarasota, yes. Mm-hmm. So as the storm moves south, that region is going to probably take the damage a little harder than it was looking like as a couple of days ago. But right now, very selfishly in terms of my family in Tampa, and even more selfishly if you want to extend it to the game staying in Tampa, it does seem like the Tampa-St. Pete region right now has gotten more good news than bad over the last couple hours. Still sounds like it could be a Cat 3 in Tampa, if not a 4 still. But it sounds like the Category 5 stuff's probably moving a little farther south right now. Coming for you, Lezak.
Okay, there you go.
Coming for the throne.
You know what? Lezak doesn't have boots on the ground there.
That's right.
He doesn't have somebody's backyard ring camera.
My little sister's wearing a Sports Radio 810 t-shirt at the place that they're staying at right now. Just got more pictures a couple minutes ago.
There we go. Well, hopefully they continue to stay safe as well. So we will take a timeout. We'll come back and we'll ask that question and see if we can answer it. Is the AFC all that much different than what we thought it was going to look like before the season started? Standing certainly, but really when you dive in, what's the answer? We'll address that coming up on the other side. Tom Watson, we'll talk with him later on this hour. Cynthia Frelund from NFL Network, analytics expert. Hear from the Chiefs later on today, and Mick Shaffer as well. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson
I feel like the sky's the ceiling for us.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
The ceiling is the roof.
All right, we'll talk with Tom Watson coming up in about 10 minutes or so from now. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We'll talk with Cynthia Frelund coming up at 11 o'clock, Chiefs, and then Mick Shaffer as well. 913-912-4810. So I asked the question, is the AFC as different as the standings look than what we thought it would be at the beginning of the year? So I remember us talking about how difficult the AFC is going to be because we felt like there were 13 teams that all could make the playoffs outside of Houston and Jacksonville, of course.
We talked to Field at the beginning of the year. He only crossed off Houston.
That's right. That is
Bless
true.
him.
That is true.
He saw the future.
And by the way, Houston
teal.
higher in the standings for the playoffs than the Raiders right now. So, but the Jags, if you said, well, 14 of the 16 teams could make the postseason in the AFC, except for Houston and Jacksonville. Well, now you got an idea that maybe 15 of the 16 teams could make the postseason in the AFC, or at least have a chance to do that. So there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be left out. So we said that at the beginning of the year. We knew that it was going to be competitive and it was going to be close and it would come down to a game here or there. But we felt like Buffalo, Kansas City, the Chargers were sort of the class of the AFC, that those were the teams vying for the number one seed. So I went through and looked at 11 different teams. And through 3 weeks, what the possible standings and how different, essentially, if you went back a month from now and played the whole season over again, there is probably 0.5, better than 0%, but I think less than 1%, you would have the standings the way they are right now. Because so many things in certain games went one way or another. Like the Chiefs are sitting 2-1 right now, but they could be 3-0, they could be 1-2. They won't be 0-3 because they dominated the Cardinals. But they could be any of three different records. If they lose to the Chargers and lose to the Colts, now they're 1-2. They beat the Colts this Sunday, now they're 3-0. Baltimore is 2-1. They could be 3-0. They were up 35-14 against Miami. Miami's 3-0. They could be 2-1 or 1-2.
If Tua just gets screened for a concussion, they're probably...
Right? If Buffalo doesn't do whatever they did, and Miami defense deserves credit.
Absolutely.
But Buffalo gets the ball, and it was a great punt, by the way, on the free kick. But they're down 2 with the ball with, a minute 10 to go. They need a field goal. That's it. They don't need a touchdown. That's a huge swing game. Buffalo's 2-1. They could be 3-0 with that same swing game with Miami. You're talking about Buffalo leading the division at 3-0 and Miami being 2-1. That last part of that game. Cincinnati's 1-2. They could be 2-1 or 3-0. They lost in overtime to the Steelers, in which their kicker missed an extra point and a field goal, both being chip shots. And they lost by 3 to the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. They could be 3-0. Denver's 2-1, and they're the widest variant. Denver and Las Vegas are the widest variant. Denver's 2-1. They could be 1-2, 3-0, or 0-3. They had the loss versus Seattle, 17-16. If they win that one, now they're 3-0. But let's say they do lose that one. They beat the Texans, in which they were trailing in the fourth quarter, and they beat San Francisco 11-10, in which Jimmy Garoppolo stepped out of the end zone, although that did prevent a pick six. So it saved 5 points for the 49ers. But that's the difference between being 0-3 or 3-0. They're sitting 2-1. The Chargers are 1-2. They could be 0-3 or 2-1. They beat the Chiefs. They're sitting 2-1. They lose to the Raiders. They're up 24-19. Now they're 0-3. The Raiders are 0-3. They could be 3-0, 2-1, or 1-2. They lost to the Chargers by 5, in which they had the ball with 1:30 to play, down by 5. They lost in overtime to the Cardinals, in which they were up 20-0. They lost to Tennessee this last weekend by 2, in which a 2-point conversion failed there at the end. Jacksonville could be 3-0. They lost to Washington. They were up 22-14 in the fourth quarter to the Commanders.
The two undefeated AFC teams should both be Floridian.
Yes.
The Jags and Dolphins should probably both be undefeated.
Cleveland's 2-1. They could be 3-0.
I was wondering
Or
if you were going to come
1-2.
back to Cleveland. Cleveland very easily could go 0-3, 3-0. Easily.
Right.
That Steelers game was an atrocity, but they beat the
Right.
Panthers by 2 points and then lost to the Jets in that nightmare.
Yeah, and a late field goal against the Panthers. They were up 13 with under 2 minutes to play to the Jets. And then the Titans. Titans are 1-2. They could be 0-3. They could also be 2-1 because they beat the Raiders by 2 this last weekend. That was their first win. They could be 0-3, and they could be 2-1 because they lost to the Jets by 1 point early in the season.
The parity is something that even Andy Reid is now talking about on a regular basis. He said it post-game after Chiefs goals. The parity in this league is insane. He said it a number of times. I don't know if he used the word insane, but he has talked about it where I don't feel like I've heard him talk about the word parity as often in years past.
I said Jets. I meant Giants. They lost to the Giants by 1. That was the game early in the season where the Giants beat the Titans by 1 point.
You're good. I completely purged that from my memory as soon as possible.
As most people should.
I did not want to have that taken up.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of free space left in here. That was a really easy one for me to delete.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I was like, the Jets have 1 win. How did they beat Cleveland and Tennessee? No, it was the Giants.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. Couldn't matter less.
But isn't the parity there, though?
It's unbelievable. I mean, everything is on a coin flip, a field goal, an overtime period. It's one of the reasons that losing to the Colts for the Chiefs is by no means a death knell, but it's really frustrating because they gave it up. Like, it wasn't like they had it snatched away from them. They really should have just won that game and been 3-0 with the Dolphins and just be chugging along into Tampa or Minnesota or whatever. But ultimately, that is the saving grace of the times where you stub your toe and lose a game you're not supposed to lose. Everybody else is doing that also. This whole league comes down to one coin flip in the fourth quarter. One team wins, one team loses. Unless you're in the AFC South, then sometimes you die.
Sometimes when you win, you actually lose. Sometimes when you lose, you actually win. Sometimes when you win or lose, you actually tie. And Josh, sometimes when you tie, you actually win or lose. No chance you get that reference. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and I hope you get many references when we talk about Tom Watson.
You can finally talk to a real winner, someone who knows about winning. Fair enough.
That's exactly right. Tom Watson, we will talk with him on the other side of the break. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson
All right, welcome back, Anderson in the Zone. It's ESPN. It's Sports Radio 810 WHB.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. We head up until 2 o'clock. Right now, very pleased to be joined by Kansas City legend Tom Watson to tell you a little bit about an awesome event coming up on Monday that is for just a really good cause and maybe an underserved cause and an underlooked cause that might be getting a little more attention but continues to need to do that. And it's For the Kids Foundation, forthekidskc.org, with an event coming up on Monday at Blue Hills Country Club with the fine folks over at Nick and Jake's to help prevent teenage suicide. And it is certainly something that we should be paying a little bit more attention to. And Tom Watson joining us here in the Zone. Tom, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. I guess I'll just say, how are you right now in life? Maybe whether it's post golf or a little golf and things that are going on with you.
Well, my life is going along just fine. I'm hanging around Kansas City right now, getting ready to show some cutting horses in about 3 or 4 weeks, and playing a little golf. It's been great golf weather. Taking care of business around the farm and doing chores. That's what you do when you're 73 years old.
That's right. My father-in-law is 73, and I never see him sit down. It is amazing. He's got more energy than I do. I just don't know how he does it, but you know what? God bless him. So Tom Watson is our guest. Okay, so I mentioned the event coming up on Monday, and forthekidskc.org is the website, and a lot of this goes to Children's Mercy and the partnership there. From your standpoint, the involvement with For the Kids and this golf tournament, and also sort of being a mentor to this foundation, what was it about that made you want to get involved and be such an integral part of it?
Well, the main reason was Kevin Timmons. His son Nick had some real issues and committed suicide, and that just woke a lot of people up to the undercurrent of the depression and anxiety that kids have today in school, and especially with the COVID pandemic keeping the kids out of school for the last couple of years. We've seen a dramatic increase in the suicide, depression, anxiety of these kids because they don't have the social interaction of being with other kids to be able to sort things out as kids do. There was a problem before the pandemic, and it remains even a bigger problem today. So the For the Kids Day is to help fund the anxiety and depression clinic at Children's Mercy Hospital. Children's Mercy Hospital over the last 3 years has been directly involved in a program in the Boot Valley High School system to create social help social workers go into the schools to be there for kids who have that anxiety and depression, somebody to talk to. And by the way, the most important thing is that by just having them there and publicizing the fact that they're there, the kids themselves, kids, they're going to talk, and they talk. Well, what is all this? Well, what's this all about? And when something terrible happens, as it happened in the Blue Valley school system with several suicides, the kids they might be having trouble with, and saying, there's a solution to this, or there's some help that you can get with the Mercy Hospital social workers here in the school system, and it's worked well to reduce the level of suicides in the Blue Valley system, and now the anxiety and depression clinic at Children's Mercy Hospital is all in to do not only the Blue Valley school system, but obviously city and regional wide, to help kids who have anxiety and depression disorder.
It's interesting learning more about it. Tom Watson's our guest. It's interesting learning more about it, and it's the ignorance from me and maybe just naivety that I kind of just assumed that something like that would be at Children's Mercy or around there, or as maybe pronounced as it is now, and growing as it is now. But it's been something in our country that has been so overlooked for a long time in mental health, and we think about it a lot with adults and not necessarily as much with children. And certainly that's a big part of it. And I read that they're seeing more and more kids than ever before, and I just wonder, sort of a combination. Is that because more and more kids are having the anxiety and depression, or more and more of attention is being put to it, and it's okay to do those things, and there's more of an effort, so therefore more kids are reaching or are receiving the help that maybe kids years and years and decades could have used, that it just wasn't available to them?
Well, two things at work here, as I aforementioned, that the rate of anxiety and depression and suicide has gone up since the lockdown happened and the kids couldn't go to school. But on the other side of the coin there, the awareness of the problems that these kids are having has become more and more public. It was always the big, the invisible elephant in the room. You never wanted to talk about suicide because it was such a terrible thing to think about. And of course, when it happened, it just, people go, Now you have people that say, we're going to prevent this before it happens. And that's the whole impetus of the anxiety and depression clinic at Children's Mercy Hospital, and the social workers working within the school systems to nip it in the bud in the beginning stages of it, to help these kids get through some of these anxiety attacks, the depression that they have, and get back to normal, healthy mental health.
Visiting with Tom Watson, Kansas City legend, here in the Zone, and the golf tournament is sold out. But a really cool deal going on Monday night is that you can join for the kids, and also head coach of the Kansas Jayhawks, national champion Kansas Jayhawks Bill Self, for a dinner that goes on Monday night that is open for those that want to sign up. Even donate if you want to at For the Kids, FORE, thekidskc.org, where you can donate and give back as well. And the money and this foundation, fully functioning 501c3, and all this money that's going to Children's Mercy, which is such a gem to have here in Kansas City. And
yes, it is.
I mean, just there aren't many cities across the country that have something like Children's Mercy in our backyard, and we're very lucky.
We're very fortunate to have an institution, Children's Mercy Hospital, that started way back in the 30s. I believe it was the 30s, with the sisters who decided to go out to the community and say, we have to take care of our sick kids. And, oh, by the way, you need to donate the funds to help these sick kids. They went door to door, company to company, and just put the strong arm on people. Say, hey, we have to take care of these kids, because these kids, first of all, they can't pay for it themselves, but they need help, and so you need to help pay for this. And that's been the mantra of Children's Mercy from the get-go, is that kids get to go to the hospital, and if they don't have the means or the insurance to pay, they're taken care of. And it's a wonderful institution. It's grown by leaps and bounds. The research area in the hospital is now par excellence. It is really something to behold. I've gone through it. The types of research and the machines that they have acquired, genetic research in particular, to try to delve into the basic fundamentals of the DNA of these diseases. This is something that is cutting-edge technology and cutting-edge research, and Children's Mercy is doing that.
Tom Watson is our guest, 8-time major champion, and he's joining us here in the Zone. So I'm reading a little bit, and you had mentioned it at the beginning of sort of your life right now, from little golf and then the horse riding, the cutting horses. I had no idea the term of cutting horses. It is not what I thought it would be. You hear that, it's like, what are you doing, Tom? Why are you doing this? What is cutting horses, and how has it become a passion for you now?
Well, it's simply the passion came from my wife Hillary, who passed away from pancreatic cancer about 3 years ago. She loved cutting horses. She started right after we got married and became a very accomplished rider and competitor. I watched her for many years, and I finally said, I can't watch anymore. I got to try to do this. And my career was winding down, and I had time on my hands, and I said, let me try something new. Become a total rank amateur, like the amateur golfers I play with, like you, Jason.
I wish.
and see if I can do something different in my life. And it simply explained that if you have a sick cow and a herd of cattle, and you have to separate that cow from the herd, what do? Well, you get on the horseback. You go in and you walk very slowly into the herd because you don't want to bust the herd. If you go in fast, that herd's going to scatter. You have to go slowly and move it to the outside and finally separate from the herd. That's the whole game of cutting. When you do that, you have to separate a cow from the herd, and once it's separated, you have to put the reins down. You can't guide the horse, neck rein the horse. You can only do it with your feet. The horse is trained to keep that cow from getting back in their herd because that cow wants to get back in their herd in the worst way.
It's amazing. It's amazing. If you think back to, you're winning Open championships in the 80s, you ever think like looking in your career or in your life that, in 2022, you'll be an honorary starter at the Masters while also competing competitively for cutting horses?
Well, when I grew up in Hopalong Cassidy, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, the Lone Ranger, all these heroes of ours as a kid. I'm just playing it out in the other side of on the back nine of my life.
Yeah, that's right. What was that, real quick, and we'll let you go. And again, For the Kids, FORE, thekidskc.org, with this event coming up on Monday. What was that experience like? Maybe even from the phone call to actually having it happen with the honorary starter at the Masters this year.
Well, the phone call was pretty special. Fred Ridley, who's the chairman of the Masters, called me and said, "Tom, we'd like to invite you to be the honorary starter along with Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player this last year at the Masters." I said to him, well, I really don't believe I belong in the same company. I can't carry these guys' shoes. And he said, "No, Tom, we really do want you. And by the way, you can do it for as long as you'd like to do it." So it's not a one-time deal. Awesome. So I said I'd be honored to do it, and I was honored to do it. It was a special moment in my career to be able to do that with Jack and Gary, because I had seen the other honorary starters when I played in the Masters when I first started playing in 1970. I saw Jock Hutchison and Freddie McLeod started off in 1970, and then when I started playing in the Masters, then you had Sam Snead and Byron Nelson and Gene Sarazen, and then Jack and Arnie and Gary, and you had these players become the honorary starters, and it certainly is an honor to be able to hit the first ceremonial shot at Augusta.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's been awesome to see in a true Kansas City, and Tom Watson here with us again for the kids. FORE, thekidskc.org. The event coming up on Monday. You can purchase tickets to the dinner. You can donate online at FORE, thekidskc.org. Kansas head coach Bill Self will be there as well. Tom Watson.
And Jason,
yes, go ahead.
One more thing. There is a wonderful auction with some very, very special auction items that you can go online and peruse and see if you might want to partake of those. There's some really special things that are going to happen. So,
awesome.
Let that be out there, and people come on out.
Yeah, we'll continue letting them know about the auction and then that dinner going on Monday night as well. Tom Watson here in the zone with us. Tom, thank you so much. I really appreciated all the work you do as well with Children's Mercy and also For the Kids Foundation. So thank you so much for the time and continued luck in the cutting career now.
Just tell me good cows. I need good cows, not bad cows.
Okay, good cow. So it's like break a leg. It's like hit him
That's right,
straight.
good cow.
Good cow. Okay, very good.
Put them in the middle, they say.
Absolutely. Tom Watson. Tom, you're the man. Really appreciate the time, sir.
All right, take care, Jason.
Tom Watson, 8-time major champion, joining us here in the zone as that event coming up on Monday night. Again, for thekidskc.org, FORE, thekidskc.org. The proceeds go towards Children's Mercy in what they have been doing for Children's Mercy Anxiety and Depression Clinic that is continuing to develop and grow and do more things with the Kansas City community and school districts and things like that to reach the kids before it gets to a crisis level, to head it off at the pass, to stop it before it starts to develop. And that is such important work that is going on with that, and for thekidskc.org. And he mentioned the silent auction with a lot of really awesome items that are there as well that you can go check out and donate, participate in the silent auction, or
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
We're going to kick you in the teeth. All right. And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thank you to Tom Watson. Great stuff there from an absolute Kansas City legend. We've discussed Mount Rushmore when Lynn Dawson passed, and I don't think there's a Mount Rushmore in Kansas City for anybody that does not include Tom Watson. So great stuff with him and his work with Children's Mercy. And again, that is forthekidskc.org, F-O-R-E, thekidskc.org. You can check out the silent auction items that are there, and also purchase tickets for the event Monday night in the dinner, which Bill Self will be there in attendance as one of the hosts and the honorary attendees that'll be there as well. So 913-912-4810. Let's talk some NFL football. We'll hear from the Chiefs later on this hour. Right now, talking with NFL Network's analytics expert, Cynthia Frelund, joining us here in the Zone. Cynthia, how are you, ma'am?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am doing just fine. I appreciate you joining the show today. Typically we start right out of the gates with the game that just took place with the Chiefs. But one of the things I talked about in the first hour is, reassessing through 3 weeks, looking at the AFC. And, the conversation that so many of us had, which was, this AFC is deep and it's going to be competitive, and 14 of the 16 teams probably think they've got a chance of making the playoffs. Well, now 15, because the Jags were one of the two that I did not include there. And so I just bringing that up, I'm like, okay, so is it different now looking at the standings than we thought it would be? But I went through and found 11 different teams, Cynthia, that had a range anywhere from potentially 0-3 to 3-0 to 2-1 to 1-2 because of how close some of these final scores were, that a bounce here or there, that if you played this season, if you went back 3 weeks ago, Cynthia, and you started playing the season, the standings could look, the Raiders might be 3-0 right now, and people going, why were we doubting the Raiders and thinking that they would not make the playoffs this year? It's actually been, to a degree, even though the standings don't look like it, Cynthia, it's been what we've said and how balanced and competitive it's going to be. We've just seen it in different losses than we thought were going to take place.
Certainly, and we've seen some other weird things too. So first off, you talked about, the Raiders specifically. You have to remember, there is a certain amount of time that teams need in order to create that chemistry. We saw it last year with the Chiefs, remember, with the O-line in the beginning. But Devontae Adams, I know they played in college together. We heard that maybe 17 million times conservatively ahead of the season. But, it does take a little time for some of these things to come together. So we've seen a lot more teams move big positions, more quarterback changes. See the Colts, a good example. And then we've also seen big ticket players, more movement than we've ever seen. And we've also seen scoring go down. This is the fewest points scored through the first 3 weeks since 2010. So you're getting some differences that are just very, very interesting. And those things are, a lot of those small things come down to, there's more parity this year than we've seen in recent years. And also those bounces that you talk about, imagine that if it's week 13, you might not see that kind of negative bounce for the Raiders that's happened in kind of all three of their games. So the reality is there's a confluence of events and the change in how preseason handled, et cetera, that are all leading to what we've seen for the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, and Denver's 2-1, and they could be 3-0, 0-3, 1-2. It's just, and the Chiefs, by the way, the Chiefs could be 1-2. I mean, we talk about the loss to the Colts and how in the world are they 2-1. I mean, if the Colts game ends up happening the exact same way, but it's coupled with the Chiefs not pulling out the victory against the Chargers, there would be a whole lot more panic around Kansas City right now in conversations around this Chiefs team, but they found a way to win. And it's interesting you bring up the fewest points scored because, there is actually, I guess, some evidence to how how much parity and how balanced it seems like it is, because I didn't know if it was just like this every year and didn't really pay attention because we're so focused on the Chiefs, or is it just maybe more pronounced this year than in other years? Because it makes me pay attention more because we felt like this AFC was going to be really competitive and so many different teams that are good enough in different years to make the playoffs that might be 3 or 4 teams removed from even making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I also think we don't know, when I'm looking through it at what I know about teams, what I know, meaning what does their identity look like? I know a lot less this year than I've known in years past.
Good point.
In part because we've seen a lot of injuries too.
Yeah.
So it's injuries, big players moving, more parity. It's really interesting. It's very fascinating. I mean, look at the Bills, for example. Their entire secondary, they're getting guys that have, not been playing for the first 3 weeks that are going to be starting this week.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, and they could be undefeated. Instead, they're 2-1. I mean, that's such a huge swing game that the Dolphins could be 2-1 right now, or 1-2 because they had that huge comeback against Baltimore. We could be talking about Baltimore and Buffalo both being undefeated at 3-0, and maybe even the Chiefs if they beat the Colts sitting 3-0. We would be saying wow, look, Baltimore, Buffalo, the Chiefs. It's not exactly. I mean, it's kind of what we thought, and instead it's wow, what's going on? Miami's the only undefeated team left, and good on them. They found a way to win a couple of games, and that's gonna serve them well late in the season. That could be a huge difference maker with that. So Cynthia Frelund is our guest from NFL Network, analytics expert. So what did you see in the Chiefs and Colts game, and how the Colts pulled this one out, or how the Chiefs gave this one away?
I guess it was probably one of the more surprising outcomes of the entire week. But, the beginning of games, especially for Matt Ryan, has to be conservative enough so that he's not in negative down and distance situations. Remember, he did not have their number one wide receiver, Michael Pittman. Whether or not he's their number one in terms of how many catches he has at least through the season is one thing, but that is their wideout number one. He wasn't playing the last game. Either was their rookie Alex Pierce. So their entire offense looks completely different. And by the way, he's a new quarterback coming from a different team that didn't take many snaps in the preseason either. Comparatively, he did play, but that's a running first team, and they didn't have Jonathan Taylor playing the preseason. So is it really what we saw or not, right? So they have a lot of differences in terms of kind of who they're going to be versus who we've seen them be early on in this season. Their O-line isn't as strong as in the past, but on the other side of things, we don't know what their plans are. So when you're looking and you're playing against how to stop them, it's not just Jonathan Taylor, and some known tendencies from Carson Wentz. It's kind of just a different unlucky bounces. We talked about it in week 2. Unlucky bounces were favorable for the Chiefs. In this case, it was the opposite.
Cynthia Frelund is our guest. Any longer term or bigger picture concerns for the Chiefs, or it's an any given Sunday, things happen, you didn't play great, some bounces went the other way, a penalty called or not called could be the difference in that,
right?
And you simply regroup and move on. But are there bigger concerns for this Chiefs team coming out of that game?
I'm not concerned about the Chiefs. To be honest with you, I think the Chiefs and the Bills this week, who obviously can't wait for week 6, but they both kind of got a little, use the word a little bit of a gift to kind of let's get these expectations. After week 1 and week 2, I think people thought well, there's no stopping either of these teams. It's just hype machine. And now that can cool things off a little bit. I'd rather be the Chiefs in this case than the Bills because that Bills secondary is decimated. But, that's a big problem. But, Sky Moore, he's a rookie. Come on. These are not things that are these do not feel or seem to be long-term problems. It's not you could still get Travis Kelce going. He's lined up everywhere. It's coming together. These are not the problems that you're you saw a meltdown from the Chargers that included losing an O-lineman, a big important right tackle that has been playing really well, and all of these other injuries. That's not a problem that you want to have. It's okay to drop a game to the Colts, who were a team that's kind of up and coming, likely still to win their division despite a very bad start to the season. And it's okay. At the end of the season, you're oh, they only lost to the Colts, whatever. You know what I mean? It's not a bad loss in my opinion.
It's interesting. You frame it as expectations so high that maybe this just dials it back a little bit, tempers those with the Bills loss, with the Chiefs loss. Because last week we were having conversations about, okay, when does the first loss happen for the Chiefs? When? Right? By the way, nobody said Colts. There were 0 people that said the Colts.
Everyone's survivor pool is totally dead now. But
right.
We're good. We're good.
That's exactly right. Yes. So Cynthia Frelund is our guest, NFL Network analytics expert. one of the things that coming out of that game, and we've seen it in in short yardage situation with the Chiefs, and you and I talked about that last week, and we've seen it in sometimes protection of Patrick Mahomes. The offensive line doesn't seem to be playing at the level it did last year. And I went through and watched the All-22, what's today, Wednesday, so Monday night that I went through and watched, because one of the concerns I had...
all blend together.
Yeah,
Friday,
I know. Absolutely. I'm like, is today Wednesday? It was one night this week, because the conversation we were having on Monday on the air, Cynthia, is, are guys getting open? Like, Mahomes is scrambling and running for his life, but it's because our guy's not winning, and the theme or narrative that's developing of, well, this is what it looks like without Tyreek Hill. And so I was really fascinated and curious of, like, okay, what does it look like? And what I saw was encouraging and discouraging at the same time. It was, and I tweeted out at my Twitter handle, at J810Anderson, there are 8 plays in 5 different drives that didn't result in points where the Chiefs had a wide open receiver. Either that guy won his one-on-one battle or he was schemed open, in which Mahomes didn't have time to get to him because he was already running in the pocket or scrambling, or his head, ducked down because he's trying to get away. That just a little bit more time here or there, those are completed. Encouraging that there were open guys. It wasn't, they were just blanketed and Juju and MVS can't win. Discouraging because it has been a less than stellar start to the year for this offensive line, which is supposed to be one of the best in the league.
I think what you're seeing, that, like, you're right. I think that's a really good way to put it, right? Because when I went back and tracked, I think that this might be the game this week, might be the game where we really see, full Juju, why they've, really, your fantasy team situation will be much better for, obviously we play real football, but you know what I'm saying, where Juju has just some of these numbers where you're like, oh, well, okay, we're into this. I think it's because when I started to track him and where he was going and all the different ways, from the slot, how much separation he could get, it's getting better and better. The problem is, again, like everything else, this is a lot of change. And when you have a lot of change, it does take a certain amount of snaps for the change to really set in and to really become, all right, we're used to it now, right? You see it with literally everyone. Aaron Rodgers took an extra beat or two. Week 1, he was taking an extra almost half a second, which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but in football, that's a very long time. He was taking an extra half a second on routes that would have been automatic in the past. And so you can't expect that not to be the same for kind of everyone who has a retooled pass-catching situation.
Yeah,
and
go ahead. Sorry.
That's just how it is.
And I guess I was trying to, I wanted to see, because the narrative had developed of, well, this is, no Tyreek Hill, this is what happens. Because I wanted to see for myself, because I'm like, okay, that might be the case. Maybe we did underestimate at least, what the impact could be with no Tyreek Hill if guys just simply weren't winning their battles. But I wanted to see for myself, and my takeaway was, that game against the Colts and scoring 17 points, although there was a missed extra point, which they got back on the 2-point conversion, but there was the fake field goal because they didn't trust their kicker, and there was a missed field goal in which there's a reason they didn't trust their kicker, and there was a 1st and goal at the 3 in which they didn't score a touchdown there, which Tyreek isn't necessarily a guy that would make that big of a difference down there near the goal line. They handed it off twice, and then it was an incomplete pass to Kelsey. My takeaway was, yeah, I didn't see that as there's no Tyreek Hill unless Tyreek Hill was being used as left tackle or right guard or left guard at different times, which I don't think the Chiefs are missing Tyreek Hill's offensive line ability. And that's my takeaway is that's why there's encouragement, because I don't think the offensive line is going to play this way all year. I think they're much more talented than the way that certainly they played against the Colts. Chalk it up to a great game plan for the Colts and the Chiefs just having a rough game. And so if there are guys open, Mahomes is going to find them. They're going to have enough time, and the offense, to me, is eventually going to be fine. The biggest takeaway is just how good the defense is playing right now.
Yes, I think that I'm with you. And by the way, defense has that's the way to generate kind of regular rates of. I don't want to use the word turnovers because they can be fickle. But the best thing you can do is to create no separation. So have your receivers blanketed and get pressure. And you're seeing that from the Chiefs defense. I don't like the turnovers, like I said, too fickle in terms of data, right? But if you're able to pressure opposing quarterbacks and you're able to blanket all of the people who could potentially catch a pass and you're able to stop the run enough, you don't necessarily even need to stop every run. You just need to stop the run from being big, deep gashes. Then you're going to be in good shape, especially when you have an offense like this. It's kind of, and I hate to say this, like it's kind of okay for it to take a minute to adjust to new people playing on your offense, and it's kind of okay for all, because it's not like you're dealing with a mediocre quarterback that you're trying to cover up with strong skill position players, right? That is not the case here. So it's kind of okay for it to take a second. There's 11 people moving on either side of the ball on every snap. So you got to kind of remember, okay, this is Patrick. They will figure it out. And you've already seen a lot of Of course, it would be, of course, when you have the familiarity and the speed of Tyreek Hill on this, yes, of course, that would be faster way to think about value from your wide receiver one. But I still maintain that the entire receiving core, the top to bottom, numbers one through however many they have on the team, are stronger than what you would have been able to achieve had you kept Tyreek and then tried to add other pieces. So I still maintain that. Like I'm not going to stop because I think that's true. So the wide receiving value overall is stronger now. Just takes a minute. And like I said, it's okay to drop one to the probable still AFC South winning Colts. Not great. Nobody likes it, but still, let's get expectations out of the way. Great, wonderful, move on.
Cynthia Frelund is our guest, NFL Network analytics expert. Do you think this could be limiting separation with the secondary for the Chiefs defense and also getting pressure, which they have been getting pressure, and finally the pressure matched up with sacks against the Colts, which is one of the things you and I talked about, and I predicted all week that maybe the sacks weren't being shown in terms of numbers to the way that they were actually getting pressure, but I thought that would change against the Colts, and it did with 5 sacks and a couple of forced fumbles. Is this, by the end of the year, are we talking about maybe the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has had in his career in Kansas City and being able to have a strength on that side of the football for him?
I mean, I wish that Mick Shaffer were still in because I think that would help even more. But, I think this is a very strong defense, and it could be the strongest one he's had. It's hard to exactly determine that because let's be honest, I'm going to be curious to see the different styles of play. Like, the Colts are run-first kind of team, and then you have very pass-happy teams. So the thing about a good defense is, how many different situations can you throw them into back-to-back weeks and then be able to kind of still keep your offense in the spot where they can give you enough scoring support to win. So, and the hard part about the AFC is you can imagine weeks where you have a Lamar Jackson one week and then a Josh Allen the next. That's a lot. That's a lot of snaps. And ask the Dolphins. They played 90 snaps against Josh Allen. 90. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's unbelievable.
That's the kind of, yes, but I also think offenses in this AFC, I don't know if just the best defense he's had is going to be enough. You got to have one that can adapt, one that's it has to be better than just the best he's had. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, we had talked about a couple of days ago just some of the oddities of this past weekend outside of the Chiefs, and that that game, the Bills and Dolphins, that they run that many plays to the Bills, and Josh Allen passes it 40 times or whatever it was for 400 yards, and they only score 19 points, and then we had to go and look it up because, I couldn't have imagined that it happened very often, that Tom Brady completed 74% of his passes on 40 or more attempts with a touchdown, almost 300 yards, no turnovers, and they scored 12 points. The previous low for Tom Brady in a game in which he completed at least 74% of his passes was 19, and that's the first game he lost was against the Packers. There were some odd things, how in the world is Brady that efficient, but you never felt like they were actually really challenging the Packers defense? It's really weird.
It was incredibly strange. I think that the reality was the Packers had a really smart game plan to start with their offense, and Tampa was without Mike Evans was kind of really they needed a bit to get going, and unfortunately for Tampa, they just weren't able to kind of get that. Nothing happened in the second quarter after those two scores. That was a hard game to watch after a while. It got a little boring. You never thought you'd say that between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers.
Good point.
But goodness, it was Okay. What, are we ready yet? Like, let's go. Like, we're good here.
That is a great point. Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. Okay, so what do you think of the Bucs? What kind of difference of a team are they when they don't have Donovan Smith and Mike Evans and Julio Jones and Chris Godwin, as opposed to they're getting Mike Evans back this week. We know that. But if Donovan Smith returns to play after missing a few weeks, if Chris Godwin is able to go, if Julio Jones, who did practice at the end of last week, is good to go, how much different is this Bucs team with those guys on the field as opposed to what they looked like against the Packers without them?
Oh yeah, when Scotty Miller was probably their wide receiver. Yeah,
when Russell Gage was leading in targets, yes.
Yeah, like that was tough sledding for them. I think there's two things. Tom Brady early season has a bit of a tendency to target his slot receiver. Now, part of that was because for a long, long time that was Rob Gronkowski, who was probably his most trusted red zone target. Kansas City fans know about that with Kelsey. But there's no slot security this beginning of this season, which is a very interesting note for Brady because that's kind of where he historically has looked. So, without Godwin, who, plays in the slot a lot, and Mike Evans in this last one, and no Gronk, obviously. Like that kind of those routes are less certain for Tom Brady. It had been less certain and run less efficiently than in the past. So, but that's something that by week 4 or 5 they start to sort of normalize. So I don't know if that will be the case this year because they haven't been strong and he hasn't been strong in that area. So I don't know if that will normalize or if this will continue. So that's interesting too. Leonard Fournette had a really tough, it was not what we typically see from a Leonard Fournette situation, and it's outside could work. Outside zone rushing could be something that they lean on. So and those short pass catches, obviously he's proficient at those. So it's an interesting note. If they get healthier, the Donovan Smith thing is huge. That one's a big deal because Tom Brady pressure. We all know it.
Yeah.
It's like don't blitz Patrick Mahomes and make sure Tom Brady doesn't feel pressure. We got it. Understood.
Yep. Absolutely.
Those things. Okay, got it. Those are some keys. We've not, but they're true. It's not there's a reason that people have noticed that because they are stark truth.
Visiting with Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. Now, you were around the Bills in the preseason and the coaching staff. Have you ever reacted like Ken Dorsey to a sporting event results in your life, or never grew to that much passion and frustration like we saw with Dorsey?
I think maybe on the inside I felt that way, but I don't think I've taken it out on. I actually started taking boxing lessons recently. But I'm kind of a wimp, so I'm just trying to be stronger like that. But no, I don't think I have the outward rage of it, but certainly inside I've been that fired up. I just kind of keep it in.
No, that was a first round knockout by a Dorsey with the headphones.
I felt bad for that Microsoft Surface tablet, although it did look pretty durable. I wonder if they should probably do something funny and be oh, look how durable we are. We can handle this. Look,
Any chance there's a video in the coaches box this weekend with Ken Dorsey and the coaches? Any chance that happens?
If there's one thing I learned about the Bills is they probably are mortified that came out.
Yeah.
They're not trying. They want to keep it all on the field. They're very. The funny part is both the Bills and the Chiefs share the sort of sense of wholesomeness and familyness. So while it's funny for all of us to watch, I'm sure they were kind of let's not do that one again.
Well, and I thought it was they had Ken Dorsey at the podium the next day. And I don't know what their schedule is. The Chiefs have the coordinators on Thursday, so maybe that was something that typically would take place. But I would find it probably to be out of the ordinary, and it's probably the Bills and also Ken Dorsey wanting to say, you know what, I want to talk. I want to get out there and talk and apologize.
Totally.
And this thing's gone viral. I just need to get it in front of a microphone with the media and give my side, and let's do it and not wait till Thursday or whatever.
Yeah. So. Look, also on some level, look, the thing went viral because we don't usually see that, and it's a lot of passion. I think, I think it's a good thing to be to care that much. Okay, maybe don't take it out on an inanimate object, but it's an inanimate object. It's going to be okay. We can buy another Surface tablet. I think the Bills have enough money to do that. It's going to be okay. But all the narratives about you should control his anger. I'm maybe that is him controlling it. it's going to be okay. It's football. They get fired up. He went to Miami. You know, he has some records down there. Like, this one was probably one he really wanted. He had a great game plan. That was a frustrating way to end the game. Like, I mean, come on, people. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the official in the Chiefs-Colts game would have flagged him for 15 yards for that. So we know that. That was very disturbing is what it was. It was abusive language.
I mean, look, like, you know, they actually do have the rule this year, like, coaches can get fined if they're too, I think it's called, like, abusive to the ref, or I don't know the right word. That's probably not it. But, like, you know, that's why a lot of people are mindful of who's where, because if you do have tendencies to be a little bit more of a hothead, like, keep you in the booth so that you don't have a chance to get a penalty from anything stupid like that.
Yeah. Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. Last one for you. What do you think about the Chiefs and Bucks this weekend, if there's a score in mind that you have for this really fun one, Sunday Night Football? So far, still looks like it's going to remain in Tampa. We'll see.
Oh, I hope everyone in Tampa's okay. This one's as close as they come in terms of projection. The injury report will dictate a lot of things for me, and whether or not Donovan Smith plays is a huge deal because we saw Kansas City bring the pressure really, really well. It's hard. Like, I reserve the right to not know yet because
no, I agree.
Like I said, it's about as close as they come. Right now, I do have the Chiefs winning, but if you get a little healthier, it is a very close projection, in part because it's very hard when coming off a loss and all this, and Tom Brady getting his weapons back. You know, Mike Evans is a physical big deal and an actual big deal too. So, you know, it's an interesting. This is probably for me the best game of the week, and I really truly hope they can play in Tampa and everyone's okay. Like, that's very scary stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll see what
real stuff.
Yeah,
you know.
We'll see what ends up happening this week. And Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. Cynthia, great stuff as always. Really appreciate the time. Enjoy the football, and we will talk next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Talk to you next week.
Absolutely. There's Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. Great stuff from Cynthia. And I enjoy, like, during the game, she always does, like, halftime analytics numbers and things like that. And one of those that she put out halftime of the Chiefs was Kelsey in the slot, and the fact that Mahomes hadn't been blitzed yet. And then also the Matt Ryan yards per attempt, or air yards per attempt, was like -8. It was like 3.2 or something like that. It was absurd what the number was. That it's like, how is this thing a game? And they're stopping Jonathan Taylor, and Matt Ryan's air yards per attempt is like 3.8 yards. Yeah.
Every time, I'm great. I couldn't tell if my microphone was on, and I was trying to tap, but I couldn't get.
Well, you know what? We found out it was on when you cleared your throat right into it. Yeah. Now we definitely know it's on and loud. What were you gonna say?
Still not over the Colts game, apparently.
I get it. Yeah.
I'm getting choked up just thinking about it.
Let's move on. Let's talk Bucks, man. Let's do something else. Looks like her projections are the same way we feel about this game. No real read.
I just can't.
I can't get a read on it.
I'm so close to being over Chiefs Colts for like the 10th time. And then you say something like that. Like Matt Ryan's average depth of target in the first half was literally negative, and I think that might be true. Like,
it might actually be. I think it was
want to barf.
It was 3 point something, but 3 point something like depth
somehow
of target
even worse.
It's kind of negative.
It's kind of even worse. Like, Kendall Hinton could have thrown screens all day, but 3.6 means it's a quarterback. He's just not a very good one.
That's right. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and we'll hear from the Chiefs coming up there later in this hour. Mick Shaffer as well. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Somebody was like, what's it like listening to The Zone? Well, you got to take your time to find the funny.
You take your time to find the funny, and maybe eventually it'll come around and sneak up on you.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, so we know who's going to be at the podium for the Chiefs today. We know Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes will be there, but also Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Juan Thornhill. Oh, sorry. Not just Juan Thornhill will be there as well. And so we'll hear from a piece of the offense, piece of the defense, and then, of course, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. We'll see if that report ever made it to Andy Reid's desk as to what was said. If you missed it earlier, the official, Sean Smith, in his report said that he should have referenced taunting as part of that as well, and not just unsportsmanlike conduct, which to me is CYA, because you can get a taunting penalty without saying anything that is offensive. You can just stare at somebody and get a taunting penalty. And to me, that is CYA for the official who, when is going to have to actually write down what was said, is going to find out that did not rise to the level of what should have been a game-changing 15-yard penalty. And so he's saying, taunting really is part of it, because, he was staring at him. So it wasn't exactly, didn't have to be all of the language. It was a combination of the staring and the language. It was really taunting.
He was talking in the first quarter, the second quarter. The third quarter, he kind of actually pulled back. They came back in the fourth quarter. We've been talking a lot for a long time.
So much talky.
Somebody else mentioned, hey, there's another ref right there that kept his hands to himself. If it was so offensive, could the two refs within earshot not have thrown a flag?
Right. And if you missed it, Chris Jones said that the official is lying.
He tweeted a cap emoji. That could mean anything. Let's not get Chris Jones fined, okay?
I think Chris Jones has plausible deniability in being able to say that, no, the cap emoji is not me saying that that's a lie. The cap emoji is me saying, let's put a cap on this and just simply move on. Let's end this whole thing. Even though everybody knows that the cap emoji is just a way to respond to somebody that says that is a lie, which is what he did.
What do referees do when there's a second penalty on a play when they've already thrown their flag? You throw the hat. Chris Jones is saying he should have gotten 2 penalties for it.
No, Chris Jones is saying that was out of bounds, and that's when you throw the hat, is when somebody steps out of bounds, and so was that explanation by that official. That's a lie, which is what the cap emoji means. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. No lie. We'll hear from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Juan Thornhill next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
There's not a week that goes by where Coach Reid isn't going to get on you, man. That's his job, you know. Sometimes you just got to be like, take it easy, roller coaster tycoon.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, also Juan Thornhill. Juan Thornhill defense had a fantastic game until the penalty happened. And then I think they were averaging like 3.2 yards per play until the penalty. And then, of course, they drove down the field and scored a touchdown. And Jelani Woods had his second of the day. And Juan Thornhill was there. It was a great throw. They got the play right. They scored, and they win the game. And all of Chiefs Kingdom screamed an expletive. And I hope did not react like Ken Dorsey, because Ken Dorsey was slamming and breaking things that they would just simply replace because they have a lot of money. If you're in your house and slamming and breaking things, you may not be able to easily replace it. Also explaining that to the significant other as to why it needs to be replaced, or if you're in somebody else's home and that happens and then you had to replace it. Yeah, it's not great. But simply, you know what, that sucked. But they've got 14 more. Let's see what they do from here on out. Boy, really gave. You know what? It's a team game, and it took the whole team working together to blow that one. They really sucked. They were the suckiest sucks that ever sucked in that game. But not the defense, though.
No, and that could have been such a bright spot from all of this. And, again, I hope Thornhill gets to put some of that into words today. I am legitimately so interested in tomorrow's press conferences, not to look ahead too far, but the Tobe, Bieniemy, Spags trio tomorrow ought to be fascinating. And obviously Bieniemy has the halftime conversation. Tobe has maybe the worst special teams performance of his coaching career. But I really wanted Spags to get to go up as the hero of that game and be able to just levitate out there and talk about how awesome his defense was. And that all got taken away because 2/3 of those phases had disasters, which overshadowed the fact that 1/3 of them missing 3 starters, 2.5 if you want to quibble over Mike Dana, missing 3 starters. They were great.
Yeah.
And they were even great on the last drive until the Chris Jones penalty extended it.
Yeah, they got off the field pretty quickly on that particular drive, and so
it would have been 4th and a billion, which I think they probably would have had to go for.
It's like 4th and 14.
But it would have been.
I don't think they would have gone for it though, because there was still roughly 5 minutes to go, and they had their timeouts.
It would have been tough. I guess they could have punted it back, and then the Chiefs give the Chiefs a chance to kill it.
But you also don't want to give Patrick Mahomes the ball with 5 minutes to play,
for sure.
And you're down by 4, so you already need a touchdown.
I think they would have gone for it pre-sack. If Matt Ryan gets rid of that ball, shorter field, it's a little easier to talk yourself into. After the sack, that's probably getting you the ball back.
And also I know they weren't going to go for it because the punting unit was running on the field when the flag came out, because Matt Ryan and the offense was coming on the field.
Right,
in fact, when they showed the Colts players celebrating, it was the Colts punt unit that was running off the field clapping that there was a flag on the Chiefs for 15 yards that the offense was going to. So they were literally going to get unless they were going to run a fake punt on 4th and 14. But I think they probably trust their punter more than the Chiefs trusted their kicker, and they have a new kicker as well. They have a number of different transactions for the Chiefs the last couple of days.
I think I have everything they've done this week here now.
Okay.
So they released Matt Amendola from the practice squad. They signed Matthew Wright to the practice squad. That's the new kicker. Matthew Wright on the practice squad will be insurance if Harrison Butker can't go. And then today they signed Najee Johnson, the defensive back, the last pick of the draft class. They brought him back up to the active roster from the practice squad. So he's on the active roster now. Elijah Lee was released from the active roster, has re-signed back onto the practice squad. He's a vested veteran, so he doesn't have to go through waivers. And then Cortez Broughton, who you may remember from the practice squad last year, he got 3 snaps in 1 game. He was signed to the practice squad yesterday when they were making some of those other roster moves. I'll tweet all those out as well. But I think that is the complete list of moves for this week.
Here's Andy Reid.
Go. Michael Dana will not practice today with calf. McCole Hardman has a heel contusion that he's been battling through. He's not. We're going to sit him down today, and then I think he's going to be okay. But we're just going to rest that thing today. Ronald Jones is sick, so we're going to send him home, get him out of here. Other than that, Harrison Butker will go ahead and do a little bit today, and we'll just play it by ear with that as we go. And everybody else is practicing. Listen, we look forward to playing the challenge of playing the Bucs. We know they're a heck of a football team. So we're not sure where we're going to play, but wherever we need to go, we'll go. We'll get ourselves ready for that. And when the league announces it, then we'll go ahead and move forward in that direction. But right now we know nothing. So it could be in Tampa, it could be there. My heart goes out to the people of Tampa. I haven't quite followed and know how much it's hit or going to hit, but from what I heard, it sounds like it's going to be quite a deal. But our hearts and prayers go out to the people there. Anyways, with that, time's yours.
With contingency plans in place for a Tampa scenario, when do you anticipate, or has the league given you any indication on when to anticipate when you'll know?
I think in the next couple of days we'll probably have a pretty good idea. We don't know, but I know they're talking, so I think within the next couple of days we'll have a pretty definite on that. So.
Andy, have you gotten any information from the league on what Chris Jones said or Matt Ryan?
No, I've not.
Is it disappointing? I mean,
Listen, I'm without being. I mean, it's a good question, but I'm past it and going forward here. Chris and I have talked, so I'm not going to get into that part. But he's pretty honest with me on things, and so I'm good. But we got to move forward. The league's got to do what they do, and they want to tell me, they'll tell me.
Andy, Butler can't play on Sunday night. What gives you confidence your new guy will maybe do a better job than the last time?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I don't know other than his workout out here. I haven't been in a game with him, but he had a good workout yesterday, and you hope that transfers in. He does have some experience, so Dave took a look at that too. So.
Andy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 7 carries, no yards. I know that's not what you wanted. That's not what he wants. If you looked at anything that could just get something from there.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I can call those at the right time and right situation, and then again we all have a piece of it. So we block it better, we run better. We're all taking a responsibility for that. So we got to do better though. That's the bottom line, right? So you're asking the question. We've all got to do better, and we've got to identify the issue and work with it and get it fixed, which we've done. Yeah.
Coach, Orlando was on your injury report with me last week. How much is that maybe hindering him, or is that just the usual bump and bruise?
Yeah, I think it was bugging him a little bit last week, but listen, like I said, we can all do better, and he's a pretty single-minded guy, man. I mean, he's a pretty focused individual when it comes to this, so he'll keep up his work level that he does and work hard at working to get better, like we're all doing. So
your line as a whole, injuries aside or whatever, how have they performed this year, maybe compared to last year when it was all brand new for them?
Yeah, well, they know each other and they have better communication up there. Just do a better job.
Coach, I'm sorry. When you look at Tom Brady, do you see much difference in him than the many times you've faced him before?
Oh, he looks pretty good to me. He still can sling it. Very accurate. I always look at things outside the hashes, numbers as you work yourself outside. Still very accurate with that. Still has enough arm down the field, so he's a good football player.
Andy, given all this new on defense for you, have they exceeded your expectations? Is that a fair thing to say so far?
Yeah, listen, we have room to improve. I'm starting with that. A lot of room to improve, and the guys know that. But I like the effort. I like what they're doing with the scheme, the communication part. I like that. We've had some offenses that'll throw some stuff at you now. So, but we can continue. We got to continue to work to get better. But I like where we're at right now, and I was hoping that we would be in this position, and that's where we are. But we got to keep building. I don't want to, give you the impression that we're where we need to be. We need to keep building it.
What about specifically the pass rush part of it?
Yeah, so I liked what I've seen so far, Adam. You're asking me these kiss to death questions. But I like, up to this point, I like what I've seen. We've got a great challenge coming up here, and we will every week. I mean, that's just how this league is. So you can't sit on anything. You can't not stop working to improve on anything, and that's important.
Coach, the last time you played this team, obviously was in the Super Bowl, and things didn't turn out well, and you rebuilt the offensive line. How do you feel like this offensive line will stack up against their defensive front this time around?
Yeah, so they've got a real good defensive front. It's almost the same guys that they had before, and they've got some good additions in there. So it's a great challenge. I'm expecting my guys to rise up to the challenge.
Andy, you mentioned the Cole and the heel. Can you just evaluate what you've seen from him so far through 3 games?
I think the heel was affected a little bit this past week. To that point, I thought he was playing fast and running, the stuff he was supposed to run and doing that.
Coach, the last play, and obviously trying to get into field goal range, did it work out the way you wanted to? Was there maybe some, last week you were talking maybe some execution problems, maybe some things didn't go the way, maybe some of the guys were communicating like it didn't go quite the way you wanted?
Yeah, we could have done a better job on that. You hated it to come down to that, but that's where we were. And we can do a better job there.
Did you think about taking a deep shot?
Well, listen, I mean the clock was in their favor, and we were trying to turn it over into our favor. So if we could have gotten a touchdown, we would have liked to have done that. But that's not what gun was moving. And at least you want to give yourself a chance, right? In that situation, kicking the football, at least give yourself a chance. So you get yourself there, and then you can make the decisions from there. But we were fighting to get ourselves in to that position at all. So,
a couple more guys. MVS, is he just part of the growing pains, part of the process of getting a guy worked in, or have they been able to take away?
He's done he's actually done a nice job. He had a good game this past game. I thought I liked what I saw, and I liked his attitude and energy towards the game. He down the stretch, he's a real smart kid. So I like the way he approached the game, and then the leadership he showed down the stretch. I thought he had some nice grabs.
Travis went online after the game and kind of said, I need to be better. I need to catch up on the end zone. Just generally speaking, how much do you sense the urgency and the frustration from these guys on winning a record?
Yeah, listen, it's a proud bunch. Nobody likes getting their tail kicked, right? So you got to get in and go, and that's what happens. You lose a game in this thing, and it's tough. It's a tough deal. You better feel it, and so in particular from your leaders, and we all should feel that, even you guys.
You haven't been on the practice field yet since the game, but on top of what you're just talking about there, are you seeing and hearing the right things, what you would like to hear from these guys following a game like that when you guys are on the field?
They're taking accountability, and inevitably I've got to make sure the team's right. That's my responsibility. So it starts right here, and we've all had to do a better job. It starts here.
All right.
Andy Reid's press conference is brought to you by Robert Brogdon Buick GMC and Robert Brogdon's Olathe Kia. Robert Brogdon Buick GMC and Robert Brogdon's Olathe Kia. Visit BrogdonAutomotive.com. And by Andy's Frozen Custard. Andy's Frozen Custard. Enjoy the world's finest frozen custard at Andy's, made fresh every hour. Andy and Andy's, a winning combination.
All right, Andy Reid, we'll hear from Patrick Mahomes when he gets up to the podium, probably very soon, that he'll be up there getting ready to talk with the media about that Colts loss. And proud bunch, ready to get back into it. You better feel it, especially from your leaders, and there's accountability. You're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB Kansas City. In fact, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is next up, not Patrick Mahomes. Here is Clyde.
Was I would say, pretty much close to the same. It's just one of those games, man. It's football, and every day and every game can't always be yours. It's just one of those things that I felt like from the offensive standpoint that we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. From the film that we watched and doing the analysis on ourselves, that's kind of what, as an offensive group, is what we came out and felt.
What about when you dig into the running game aspect of that?
It's something that all 11 have have to look at each other and kind of figure out these are the things that we need to do, and these are the things that we need to get done. You can't sit there and pinpoint one thing or the other. It's O-line helps running backs help O-line receivers, and it's all like a trickling down effect. It's not one thing that you can always pinpoint. Not just on one play. It was, it's multiple positions and on multiple plays. So it wasn't just one thing that we can always just say, oh, this is what we should have worked on, and this is what we should have got done.
I know when you're going into something, everybody's focused. You think you're focused at least when you go in. You mentioned that there are a number of mistakes across the board at every level. Everyone on the team.
Most definitely.
Said it. You look back and say, the letdown's real. Like, you come off that big Charger game, you got a big game against the Bucs and Brady. The other side, as you look back on it, do you say that maybe we weren't quite as focused and we had a little bit of a letdown? And it's as simple as that.
I've never been the person or even felt like this has been a group to, dang, we should have did this, 3 days ago, or 2 days ago. This person seemed like they were out of focus. Just thinking back, you would say that in the times that you feel like your feet are and the things that you're doing at that time, if you don't feel like you're all in at that time in preparation, then I don't feel like that was those guys these guys in the room, and that's not how we felt like we prepared the last week. And I know we haven't prepared like that from camp and so forth. So as far as looking back, I've never been a guy or a part of a group that's kind of well, I feel like, we did this last week and we didn't do this 2 weeks ago. It wasn't one of those things. We felt like, these are the things on film that we should have pinpointed, and we seen it, and it was like, well, man, we go in this week of practice, pinpoint those things that we need to get done. Each individual group had their things. Each individual person, had their multiple things that they either wrote on their board or in their room, and we're gonna go out and we're gonna get those things done. And in the midst of that, we execute the plays that's being called.
Clyde, this is a team that you guys have met on the biggest of stages, and both of these teams are coming off frustrating losses. So what are you expecting when you see Tom Brady and the Bucs?
Well, honestly, in this standpoint, I could care less about, what they're doing. It's about, our team and what we have going on and things that we have to overcome in order for us to feel like, we're doing the right things in order for us to be successful. And, like I said, from an offensive standpoint, I can't look and see what Tom Brady's doing because I don't play against him. Right. So I'm not watching his film. But as far as an offensive group doing the things that, we felt like we, shot ourselves in the foot on, we go in and pinpoint those things and get those things done this week. So we feel like we can execute what we need to execute, not only from the 2 times that we played them, watching that film, but just some of the hiccups from last week also.
Clyde, when you look back at the game, but then overall when Patrick Mahomes said afterward, you just still continue to gel as an offense. How would you assess just how you guys continue to gel and play as one instead of sometimes where it didn't look like there was a disconnect going on?
Yeah, I mean, you hear it the whole season. It's a long season, and then it's week 3, and then we'll be looking back at this depending on how the season goes. Like, man, it seemed like that, it was forever and a year ago, just having this conversation. But it's just one of those things that we will still go back and look at this film and see some of the things that we messed up on, and still watch film and plays and formations of defenses from this game that will help us in the future. So it's just one of those things. You see where you were and then where you can be and how good that we feel like we are and how good can we be as far as in the future.
Couple more. How much are you relishing those opportunities in the pass game, and not specifically, how would you evaluate yourself so far?
It was something that multiple times I've always been asked in this situation as far as getting catches and being able to catch the ball. But like I pretty much say, as soon as Coach Reid gives me the opportunity, go run this route, bro, that's what I'm going to do. Go run the route and catch the ball. So just having the opportunities and taking full advantage of those opportunities, not only to show that I can do it, but to gain trust with not only Coach Reid, but also 15 and everybody else on offense.
Let's do 3 more. Swin, Haley, and Blair.
Clyde, just a technical thing. At LSU and here with the Chiefs, what have you been taught about reaching out at the goal line, right? Like putting the ball out there in harm's way and trying to stretch it across when you're getting in. I'm just curious if you've had different coaching along the way. If they say one thing in college, say something different here with the Chiefs.
Just to just pinpoint one thing, like I ran an option route on the goal line and got close to the goal line this previous game, and could have possibly extended the ball for the opportunity to score. But it's assessing the things around you before the route, assessing the things that's going on. And last minute I saw that middle linebacker. I mean, slicing in as hard as he possibly could for one thing only, for the ball. That's the prize possession on the field. I'm not the prize. It's always the ball. So just that aspect. It wasn't about get the touchdown. It wasn't a do or die situation. It was we can get as close as we can to the goal and then have multiple opportunities to try to get the touchdown. And then as far as like in a situation, if it's piled up on the goal line, you never. Ball doesn't lie, but sometimes that camera and angles and everything doesn't always, lean our, the best way for us individually and or for a group. So sticking out the ball, unless I see that it's an opportunity for us and no other, that's the only way that I would do it.
It's left up to you. There is like a hard and fast. Don't ever do this.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's based off your judgment, and then at that point you kind of, hopefully the football guy's on your side and it's all leaning the right way.
There was the muff punt early in the game on Sunday. What do you do as a teammate to help Sky Moore keep his head in the game?
Man, that's it's football, and the only thing you can do is encourage the next guy. And everybody gets put in those situations where you feel like at that point all eyes on you, and then the next guy might be like, man, it's all good, pick your head up, and you're like, well, you're not in that situation. So, it's really being in that situation and knowing, like, man, I can't do anything to honestly make you feel better, but the only thing I can do is show you that, all your guys are right here with you, man, and we've been through hell and back, from the things that we've been through in St. Joseph, and not only that, it's just like, a guy being so young and just having that experience, and then that's happening, and it's so early in the season, and then it's just like, it just feels like everything's, coming down on you, and, not to pinpoint bad things, but I even had a fumble that ended up, losing us a game against the Ravens last year. And it's something that, everybody would be like, it's a team match, but everybody lost the game. But I will always say that I felt like that was on me, and that's just what it is. But you try to get that individual person out of that headspace and let them know, we got your back no matter what. It was early in the game, and, as far as teammates, we did everything that we felt like we could to possibly win a game, but it just didn't pan out that way.
Clyde, it's kind of what Blair was saying, but Coach Reid said that you guys are a very accountable group, and then right after the loss, it seemed like you guys took to social media really quickly and said, this is on us, we're going to take care of this. Is that an advantage as a team that you guys are so aware of that and so quickly turning things around? Yeah,
I would say it is. Being aware on the team, but not only socially aware of the things that's going on around you. It's not. It wasn't happy-go-lucky time. For us. On the way back, and that's how it felt on the bus, and obviously it wasn't going to feel good landing in KC, knowing just how much we mean to not only the city, but everybody around us. So just trying to take full advantage of the opportunities, and for us, we feel like we only get a guaranteed 17 opportunities to kind of make everybody happy and keep that rolling. So being able to do that plus some is always the advantage and the thing that we feel like we need to take advantage of.
Thanks, Clyde.
Thank you.
All right, there's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and his Chiefs team getting ready for the Bucs. So he was asked about, what do you see from Tampa and Tom Brady? I couldn't care less about them. It's about what we've been doing, and he said watching the film, there was a lot of shooting themselves in the foot. Here's Patrick Mahomes.
Going on Tampa, and you guys don't know if you're going to be on turf or if you're going to be in another field. Do you let any of that affect you at all?
I don't think you can. It's for us, it's an away game regardless, so you're going to be going somewhere to play. So you just kind of focus on the game plan and try to prepare yourself that way. And, obviously, want to send thoughts and prayers to everybody in the Florida area, and hopefully they got out of there, and if not, that they're bunkered down and safe.
How much does your mindset change, though? Because you would have been playing outdoors, but it looks like, given some of the options, it might be in the dome. But does your preparation change if you know you're going to a dome as opposed to playing outdoors?
It doesn't for me. You have to go out there and execute the game plan. Obviously, weather would be one thing that you could kind of think about and stuff like that. But I mean, it looks like if we are in Tampa, it's going to be sunny anyway. So I mean, it'd be just us going out there and playing the game, regardless if we're indoors or out.
Last time you played Tampa, obviously it didn't turn out well. What have you seen this year with their team, their defense, that even against Green Bay last week, that is a big challenge for you this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, they're one of, if not the best defense in football. I mean, they have a great coach, a defensive coach, Coach Bowles, who's done it for a long time and been really good everywhere he's been. They have great players on every phase, every linebackers, D-line, secondary, and they play together for a while. So they're going to try to confuse you, give you different looks, but they're going to fly around and make plays. So it's about us executing, getting the ball in my hand, and letting these other guys make plays.
Patrick, what's been your focus over the past couple days, just since Indianapolis?
Yeah, just trying to learn from the tape, see where I can be better at, where I can work the pocket better, where I can get the ball in my hands and let guys make plays. Obviously, I held on to it a little bit too long that game. Their defensive line was able to get to me with me holding the football, so just trying to be better at getting the ball out of my hands and finding the open guy.
You continue to talk about gelling as a unit. You know, after the third week, I know it seemed like it started out so great in Arizona, but you had the result in Indianapolis. Do you feel that gelling just needs something where it's like, all right, working on the practice field, or something where you just feel like it's still work in progress?
Yeah, you got to continue to get better. You look back at the tape, it seemed like there was just one person on every play that wasn't in the perfect spot. And I mean, in this league, everybody has to be on the same page. I have to make the right reads whenever it's my job to make the read. The offensive line has to block as a unit. The receivers have to run routes off of each other. And I think if you can get that all together, that's when you can have those big days like we did the first week. And obviously, when you don't, you have weeks like we did this last week.
Patrick, on the final play, when you're trying to get into the field goal range, a couple questions. You looked like a couple of your receivers maybe talking afterwards, like maybe something went wrong. Did that play get executed right, and Andy just did a great job defending it, or did maybe something not go the way it was designed to go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it didn't get executed right because there was an interception. But, I mean, it's tough windows. You got to make a throw there. I try to find the best look guy and try to get him the ball so we can get down and get a timeout and get a chance for a field goal. And they made a good job of tipping the pass, and they got up there and made an interception. So it was obviously we didn't happen the way we wanted to, but we tried to give ourselves a chance to get that field goal.
And I know you had the fake field goal and you had backup kicker in, and there's a lot going on. Was there any thought when you're talking about going out there? I know you got a limited window of that. Like, if you get a shot, take it, because we're having some problems here on special teams today.
Not in that first instance. I mean, obviously, we were in range for a Hail Mary if we needed, if it was an incompletion. So we were trying to get as many yards as we can and get down to get a time. We had timeouts to get a chance for a field goal because I mean we don't trust with whoever's there at the kicking position. So if he would have got a chance to kick it, we were going to give him a chance to kick it. And so for us, we have to just continue to go out there and execute and try not to put ourselves in that position where it's such a do or die kind of scenario.
Patrick, on the other side of the ball, Tom Brady's still doing it at this age, and it seems like we ask this question every year, but now you're about to face him again. Just how much admiration do you have for him and just going up against him and competing?
Yeah, I mean, it's special to see the things that he's done in this league. I mean, the way he's able to change the position, the longevity of great success. I mean, that's the crazy part. I mean, if you look at his career, there's never been really a down year. He's always been great and had a great season and found ways to get even better. And he's done stuff off the field that hasn't impacted him on the field, but still made his legacy even greater. So it's always a great opportunity for me and our team to go up against a great quarterback and really see where your team is at.
Revenge for the golf?
Say that one more time.
Revenge for the golf?
Oh yeah. He got me in the golf, man. But yeah, I mean it'll be a big game for us, and we've had a lot of games, and he's won kind of the bigger one, so it'll be a big game for me to go up there and try to find a way to just win as a team.
Patrick, you're a long way from 45 years old, but can you from 27? Can you imagine playing? 45.
Yeah, I want to play as long as I can play, and I can still have a chance to help the team get better. Obviously, it's hard to play that to you're 45 years old, and I don't want to be out there just hanging on. And I think you see with Tom is he's still playing at a very high level, and I think that's why it's hard for him to kind of give it up. When you're playing at a high level, you don't want to leave it. And so for me, I'm gonna try to keep my body in the best shape possible. And as long as they let me play and I can play at a high level, I'll be out there.
Patrick, Darren mentioned the Super Bowl. In that game, the offensive line was down to like backups with backups. Shaq Barrett said this morning that he doesn't see much difference. He still feels like they can dominate. How much more comfortable do you feel maybe behind this offensive line than maybe that one, which had a lot of backups?
Yeah, man, I trust those 5 guys that we have out there. I feel like we have one of the best offensive lines in the league, and we'll go in there with that mindset.
Patrick, Coach told us before you came up here that McCole was going to be dealing with the heel injury and it's kind of somewhat limited him. What do you think you're missing without a healthy McCole Hardman over the past 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think, obviously the speed. We have guys with speed, but, McCole has a different type of speed than most guys out there. And then someone that's been in the offense for a couple of years, so those little nuances that these other guys are learning, he's kind of learned from watching and getting those reps. But at the same time, you got to just kind of get those other guys up to speed as quickly as possible. And hopefully McCole's heel gets better quickly, and we're able to utilize the special skill set that he has.
Couple more guys. It seems like you guys are at your best when you're having fun, right? Like in the past, you had your core group that you knew was going to be there for you. When you look at where guys are at right now, how much time do you think it's going to take to get to that point?
Yeah, I think we have everything we need right now. It's just about going out there and executing it. And you see it throughout practices, and you see it in games at certain points. But I think it's just me continue to build trust with those guys, continue to have confidence to step up and make that throw. And those guys are getting open, and they're making plays whenever their numbers are getting called. So they continue to just get better and better each and every week.
Patrick, in the last couple of days, have you had to talk to Coach Bieniemy about that halftime thing? Do you need to? Is that something that had to be brought up?
Yeah, we talk every day anyways. That's something we don't even really worry about, and we just continue on and move forward. I have a lot of trust in Coach Bieniemy. He's done a lot of great things for this organization and for this team, and he'll continue to push us forward to be even better.
Pat, Clyde mentioned he's trying to earn your trust in the past games. How much of an asset can he be to you guys to get him going?
Yeah, I think you've seen it at the beginning of this year is he's made a lot of plays in the past game, and he has in his career so far. And I think if we continue to evolve, you'll see him get more and more routes, and he'll go out there and make more and more plays.
All right. Thanks, Patrick.
All right, this is Patrick Mahomes. We'll hear from Juan Thornhill in just a little bit, but trusting those 5 guys in front of him, one of the best offensive lines in the league, he said. And looking at the tape was on those plays, one person on a specific play just not in the right spot. You get it all together, looks like Arizona. If not, it's the game on Sunday.
That quote from Shaq Barrett here, I don't really think it's too much of a difference. I think we have a lot of favorable matchups. Difference from the Super Bowl offensive line, which I'll tell you I think is pretty different. The Chiefs O-line right now, not in its best shape. Better than that, though.
Yeah. Struggled against the Colts, but better players overall. Here's Juan Thornhill.
Can you talk a little bit about the way he's playing this year and the offense around him, the challenge they present?
Always facing against Tom Brady is going to be a competitive game. The guy, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He don't get that title out of nowhere. I feel like the offense is really explosive. They got a good run game, a lot of good receivers surrounding Tom Brady, so it's going to be a good game for sure.
Well, and you guys blitzed a pretty high percentage in Indy. This guy in the back end of the defense, you like seeing that?
Oh, yeah, I love seeing pressure. The ball's coming out quick. Quarterbacks get a little antsy in the pocket, and they start throwing the ball up, and that allows us to make more plays. So I love seeing pressure.
What makes a defensive back a good pass rusher? Is there things about that job that are maybe foreign to a DB, or what goes into a good defensive back?
Some guys don't pressure a lot, in the defensive back room, but we also work on that as well. Like, we have drills out there that we work on, like dip and lean and maybe bull rushing sometimes, because if you was to bull rush the offensive lineman, they wouldn't be expecting that. So we definitely practice that for sure.
A guy like Legarius does a nice job. I know he's lined up kind of close to the ball sometimes. What do you feel like there's something that makes him a good pass rusher?
The guy's explosive. If you see him, he's getting to the quarterback so fast. Like, before the quarterback even get his feet set, he's there. The guy, he's fast. He know how to dip and lean, good bend, and that's why he's getting to the quarterback so fast.
How imperative is it when you go up against Tom Brady to make sure that he's comfortable in the pocket?
It's huge. So when the quarterback has guys rushing in his face all the time and he's not comfortable, he sees the opposite color, he's trying to find a way to get the ball out, and that gives us opportunities to make the play on the ball. So we want to make him as comfortable as possible.
A big theme in the offseason was team moving on from Tyron. It became you and Justin's Reid, Chris to an extent. Just how, I know that it's a week-by-week thing, but how happy have you been with the progress and the way that you guys have come out of the gate?
I love it. Justin's been doing a heck of a job. I feel like at first I feel like we was going to have like some hiccups along the road, but he's been doing a great job with learning the playbook. He's communicating well, playing very physical, and I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Fournette's been their leading rusher. When you look at just some of the weapons Brady has, are they every bit the skill level when you guys faced them in the Super Bowl?
They have just as much talent as they did in the Super Bowl. That defense was super strong. I mean, you had Tom Brady as well on that team, and Fournette that was still carrying the ball very well. So it's going to be a good game, like I said before, and I'm just looking forward to facing a good Tampa Bay team.
You know, when you've played them on the biggest stages, is there just more adrenaline when you face a team like this? You know, it's not that they're rivals, but you've met them in the biggest games. So I don't know. I know you get it for every game, but is there just something a little special about it?
I mean, it is, just because I don't think we played them since we lost that game. So, I mean, it's going to be really exciting being able to face the team that you lost to in the past and just try to get a rematch and hopefully we come out a win.
Well, what's so challenging about defending Mike Evans?
I mean, he's a huge target. I mean, he can stretch the field out, throw the ball up, quarterback making good throws, he can go up and get it, and he's just a guy that you got to try to take out the game because he's a game wrecker.
Well, you guys come in the season with, team goals and personal goals. One of your goals was to have an all-pro season. Where are you at, in terms of accomplishment?
See, I'm pretty happy with how I played. I mean, the last play of the game against Indy, I wouldn't take that back for anything. I mean, I played what the coaches wanted me to play, played pretty physical, and it was just a big tight end that made a great play, and the quarterback made a great throw. But I'm proud of how I'm playing, but I'm always looking for a way to increase my play and play a lot better.
Are you watching the Weather Channel?
Not really. I mean, I see things going on, but I know that we could be playing in Tampa, we could be playing in Minnesota. I don't know where we're going to be playing, but Coach, he's already been talking about we can pick up and play in McDonald's parking lot. It don't even matter. So we're ready.
Well, I know that wasn't the result that you guys wanted last week, but you did see big things out of Snead, like Adam mentioned. Nick Bolton has 2 sacks in the game. For the defensive unit, you guys are taking forward progress or making the right steps. What has it been like for you guys after those last couple of days, just knowing that you guys are on track doing the right thing?
I mean, it feels great. I mean, when the defense is making a lot of stops, making big plays in the game, it feels amazing. I mean, the only thing we can do is look for it to just keep climbing each and every week, making those big plays. Like, for example, like I just said something about my play. That's a play that I have to make to help us win. So, just guys, when it comes to that time to make a play, just got to make it.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
All right.
All right, there's Juan Thornhill, and look, that secondary's been really good. And you can tell the excitement in his voice when he was asked about playing with Justin Reid, as opposed to no shot at Tyrann Mathieu, but just, hey, Justin Reid's there, and didn't know what that was going to be like. What's it been like? I love it. First, I thought there was going to be some hiccups, but hasn't been the case, and just love playing out there with Justin Reid. It does look like the secondary's having a whole lot of fun with the guys around him, so that's certainly encouraging. Andy Reid saying that Michael Dano will not practice today, still dealing with that calf. And then McCole Hardman is resting the heel. Andy Reid not thinking it'll be anything that would keep him from playing on Sunday, just some rest to help keep that thing as healthy as possible. And then Ronald Jones was excused from practice. He is sick. And Harrison Butker is going to try to do a little today, but they will have to, quote, play that by ear this week with him. So maybe not the Ronald Jones experience this weekend. If he's sick and not practicing for the next 3 days, then maybe we won't see Ronald Jones active against the Bucs.
I've been saying Ronald Jones is sick for months now. Nothing.
I think the Chiefs might think that he's been sick, right? That's why we're not putting him in the game, right? We're not going to activate him because he's been sick. And you got these other healthy running backs.
That's cap.
As far as the Bucs are concerned, Todd Bowles meeting with the media saying that Chris Godwin and Julio Jones may do some work today at practice, not Donovan Smith. So Julio Jones and Chris Godwin may participate in practice at some degree today with Tampa, but not Donovan Smith. That doesn't mean that they are going to participate, just that they might.
Also, according to NFL executive Jeff Miller, there's no change to the Bucs-Chiefs game on Sunday as of now. This is per Ian Rappaport. They are discussing all matters with local authorities. Should Hurricane Ian force a change, the game would be played in Minnesota at U.S. Bank Stadium. Also, it appears that would be Sunday night at U.S. Bank Stadium. So the game time will not move, as far as we know right now. It'll just either be in Tampa Bay or Minnesota, 2 very easily confusable cities.
Don't worry. They're going to play at the exact same time no matter what. just at different areas of the country that they may play. But the time will be the same.
One of them will be underwater. One of them might be under snow by the time they get there.
Well, actually, the time will not be the same. One of those kickoffs will be 8:15. The other would be 7:15. So that would be confusing.
It'll be the same instance in the world, different time zones.
See, that's different though. You're preparing an hour later in the day if you're in Tampa, as opposed to, now you're playing a little bit earlier there in Minnesota. All right, so we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. We'll hear from Mick Shaffer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. I talked yesterday, and Josh and I have yet to be able to talk a little bit more, he and I, about one of the things that I pointed out in that I felt like there were guys open in the secondary for the Chiefs, and there were some issues with the offensive line. Josh has a rebuttal / devil's advocate / he wants to be wrong.
Just a little curveball.
That's fine.
I'm going to drop a little curveball in.
Being wrong is not a big deal.
I'm just trying to get my third pitch,
I do it a lot, yes. You need a change-up.
I'm just trying to. I've already got a change. I'm trying to get a little more movement on this one. We'll see.
Very good. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and we'll do that on the other side of the break here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. It's The Zone.
Patrick Mahomes press conference, brought to you by Xfinity Sports Zone. Xfinity Sports Zone, the ultimate sports hub experience, only from Xfinity. By Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park, the only Volvo dealership in Kansas City, where luxury and safety meet. Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park at 78th and Metcalf, or PremierVolvoCarsOverlandPark.com. And by Westlake Ace Hardware. Visit your local Westlake Ace Hardware today, online at westlakehardware.com. Westlake Ace Hardware. Small projects, big know-how. Ask away.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
We need to check and make sure that your fingernails are clean, because if they're not, here comes the ruler.
Wrap across the knuckles.
That's exactly right. That's what we do.
Guess I better go get my fingernails dirty.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We will talk with Mick Shaffer coming up at 1 o'clock. Whether you like it or not, Mick's going to join us. He's presented by Kona Big Wave Golden Ale. Chiefs, get ready for the Bucs Sunday night. We have boots on the ground in Tampa that have been reporting straight to Josh Brisco. We also have NFL exec Jeff Miller that is saying there is no change currently to the Bucs and Chiefs game for Sunday. They are discussing all matters with local authorities, and if Hurricane Ian forces a change, the game will be played in Minnesota at U.S. Bank Stadium still on Sunday night. But nothing as of right now. They are changing. Andy Reid said they would find out in the next couple of days if that is going to be moved or not. But the boots on the ground reporters say that there's probably a decent chance that it's not going to happen, because in an odd twist of things, the water is actually leaving.
That's right.
Tampa Bay, literally Tampa Bay, and not overflowing and flooding the city. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, that's right. I'm learning a lot about weather science right now, and that really is the status. I've gotten a couple of screenshots from my unnamed sources that may share my last name through parental blood. And some of the screenshots, just even from like the news reports the weather reports down there, Tampa Bay is currently like Tampa mud pit. I mean, it's crazy that all this water has gotten sucked out of the bay, which, again, to be clear, from what my mom has been updating me with, spoiler alert on the sources.
Whoa.
I'm not a very good journalist.
You are outing your
I'm outing my sources on this.
You could have been in a court of law and still wouldn't be forced to do that.
No, I would be a terrible.
You just gave that up right away.
A terrible confidant. I'm pretty sure that she knew that these reports were turning around to radio. We'll see. I'll find out later.
You didn't grant her off the record status.
That's right. Everything we communicate is purely on the record. This is good for Tampa and that region. It's bad for the areas just south of it. So Sarasota and a couple of the other cities a little farther down the west side of the peninsula there. Is gonna have a pretty rough go of it. But as the water gets sucked out from the places getting sucked out of, that water is supposed to return, but more slowly than it would certainly in a bleeping hurricane. Now look, there will be a lot of rain and either a Cat 3 or Cat 4 impact, at least around the edges. But it does seem like the hurricane is currently bending south. One of the more southern paths appears to be the one that's coming together, which is good stuff so far for the Tampa region.
When you showed me the picture of the bay that was less and less water as it progressed, my first thought was like seeing monsoons, that the water goes away and then comes back in like a 12-foot wave. Yes. And that apparently is not what's going on here. It is being redirected, and it's unfortunate for those that are southern, because when you have these 10-foot storm surges, the water's coming from somewhere.
Right.
But also interesting to hear that the water will eventually return, just not at the same rate that it left. So it'll return slower, and it won't just rush onto the shore and then overflow and then go up in downtown and just flood everything.
Right. So it could still be. I'm still under the impression that there definitely could be enough of an impact. The NFL says, well, look, nobody's going to be at this game either way. Yeah. Tampa would rather stay home. The NFL also isn't going to take away facilities that could ultimately be used to help the region right now, or even focus of putting on a football game in Tampa Bay, as opposed to could some of those people go be helpful in some more urgent matter and have this game go get played in a probably pretty antiseptic feeling Minnesota. Like, that would be very odd. But all on the table right now, and again, the ideal still, I think, is that they're trying to get that game done in Tampa. It seems more likely now than it was a day or two ago, certainly.
It took a hurricane to finally get that neutral site game with Chiefs and Bucs.
That's what it took.
To not have to play the Bucs in Tampa. But we'll see. I think it's if I'm guessing now, it certainly looks like it's trending towards having the game in Tampa. But it's a great point on, do you want to take all of the public services and redirect them from those that may need help to then put on a football game in Tampa as
and
opposed
things
to
like electricity for the
Right.
city. I mean, there's just there. It does not right now. Knock on wood, everybody. Everybody, go ahead. Knock on wood if you're with me.
That's right.
It doesn't seem like Tampa is going to get hit with the absolute brunt of the hurricane as it looked like they very well could have as of a couple days ago. There could still be plenty of impact on the region that sends this game to Minnesota. It's hopefully not as devastating as it looked like it could have been, because for a while there it looked very, very serious. Still serious, maybe less devastating.
So a couple things from the press conference. Andy Reid was asked about Chris Jones, the report that was given. He did not know the words. He said that if the league, want to tell me, they'll tell me. But also saying that he didn't say it, but he said it. You know, he said, Chris and I talked. He's pretty honest with me. And the tone and the inflection after that was, I'm not going to get fined.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty honest with me. I believe him when he talks to me, and we talk about things like that.
This is a good read by you.
And he's pretty honest with me. Essentially, if what happened is what he told me and I believe him, it's some BS. And if they want to tell me what's said, they'll tell me, but we're moving on from that. That was that's what I heard.
I like that interpretation very, very much. I think I'm with you on that one.
Knock if you're with me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Also, which leads us into our next conversation. Andy was asked about the offensive line, and he said, Indianapolis, they had a good scheme, but then he said twice, we got to take care of business.
Yes. Which
tells me that he wasn't happy with his offensive line play. You credit Indianapolis. You don't want to say, oh, well, we were bad. It was just our mistakes, what we were doing. Andy Reid is a coach. He's always going to look forward to the challenge of facing even a team that's never won a game before. And after the game is over, win or lose, is always going to talk about what the other team was able to do. Mm-hmm. And they had a good scheme. Credit them. It was a good scheme. We got to take care of business, which is another way of me reading into it, of him saying, yeah, the offensive line needs to do their damn job. And they did not do their job. That was one of my main takeaways from the game, in whether or not wide receivers were winning, and if Mahomes was not able to complete passes, because no Tyreek Hill equals generic receivers that can't gain separation.
And to go back to the offensive line, because so much of it starts from there, we're just sort of left grasping for answers, because this isn't like when your interior offensive linemen are three dudes that weren't on a roster 6 weeks ago, or Andrew Wiley is playing left tackle for you. This isn't that. So how did it get so bad? And the thing that I think we've seen, it's funny because Creed Humphrey got kind of lumped in on this, but now you take this with a grain of salt if you'd like. He's graded out pretty well so far from PFF and others so far to this point. The guards and tackles, though, frankly, Andrew Wiley's been Andrew Wiley. So how do you explain Orlando Brown, Trey Smith, and Joe Thuney? Orlando Brown and Trey Smith are the easy ones, I think. I think largely Kansas City's turned a pretty harsh corner on Orlando Brown. Some of it is very fair. Some of it is completely because he wants to be paid, and so you judge him more harshly. Mm-hmm. But he's been on the injury report with a knee for a while now. Every day leading up to the Colts game, he was a full participant in practice, but he's listed with a knee injury. Trey Smith's been listed with an ankle injury since he left the game with it, and then eventually he did not return, I suppose. Alec Grady finished that game. But Trey Smith's been listed with an ankle injury since then. He says he's felt fine. I think Orlando Brown has talked since he was originally put on the report with the knee. But whenever you're talking about finding guys performing at a lower level than you're used to, and it's not because they just aged 15 years, that's something that I think is worth keeping in mind. Joe Thuney was awesome last year with a broken hand.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Joe Thuney issue is, but something is not fully right there. He's not appeared on the injury report, I believe, at any point this year. I don't know what's wrong with Joe Thuney. And that one freaks me out because that contract was a huge bet on him being the best guard in football. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do not pay Joe Thuney that money to come in and be Kelechi Osemele. Remember when he came in, it was really good until he got hurt. It was a workout with somebody recently. I really like Kelechi Osemele. Yeah, he's back in the mix again. I don't
Might
know if
be
he
the
got
first
signed
time
or
he
not.
could work out since he blew out both knees on the same play.
Both knees on the same play, but no, not the first time he could work out, because like a week after that, there was a video of him with 2 huge knee braces doing some sort of upper body
Of course,
workout.
it was KO. I mean,
dude is an animal. I miss Kelechi Osemele.
Also, he shouldn't have been injured because it was a huge touchdown the play before when they called a bad holding penalty on Osemele, and then the next play is when he blew out both knees. So
Anyway,
just
I'm
unfortunate
just
there. But
glad
anyway,
to
go
know
ahead.
this is the Kelechi Osemele fan club, because it should be. I like that the zone is a safe space for that.
That's right.
You just got 2 guys that you could put a little asterisk by with injuries, and then 1 guy who I do not know what is going on there, but that pairing with Indy absolutely giving them a good game. The talent across the board, what they're doing schematically, the Colts just won in the trenches on Sunday, and the fact that that is not directly, I'm going to create a new word and say write-offable, is concerning to me. Even more so than the wide receivers, and frankly, better than it being the wide receivers, because I do think the O-line's going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You going into the receiver group and finding what you did makes me more optimistic about those pass catchers. I think the O-line's going to figure it out, but I hate that I can't point to one thing and say, oh, that's why it's not working.
Is that the part that you were going to add a little bit of a curveball to it, or is there something else to that? Because,
Let me get
you know...
It's a little spitball.
Because you and
I, the spitball here.
You and I absolutely agree on that aspect.
Yeah.
And for those that may not have seen it, at the at J810 Anderson Twitter account, I went through. There were 8 different plays that I found on 5 different drives. None of those drives resulted in points. That there were receivers open.
Yes.
That could have been very big plays, but Mahomes just did not have enough time. Some of it was immediate, that he was having to run for his life. There was a McCole Hardman that could have been an easy 15, 20-yard gain on the play that Orlando Brown just fell. The Justin Watson pass in which Watson dropped. If Mahomes doesn't have to immediately duck and get out of the way, I think Watson scores a touchdown on that one because he had already beat his man and was heading towards the end zone. But then when Mahomes was trying to adjust, then Watson flattened his route out, and then Mahomes threw the ball, and he had to come back and get it, drop the ball. So examples of that, maybe anecdotal, but looking through the game and watching different plays, it was, to me, I felt like there was either schematic or just simply winning from the receivers, that there was separation on plays that just didn't work out because of what I think the issues with the offensive line in that game.
And the end point of that essentially is, hey, this is not an offense that's struggling because of the loss of Tyreek Hill. This is an offense that's struggling because of the offensive line issues. Fair? Is that fair representation?
It's essentially like a number of issues, but I don't think the issues are that they don't have Tyreek Hill, therefore this is what an offense without Tyreek Hill looks like, scoring 17 points against a Colts team that gave up 24 to the Jags.
And I agree with that thesis statement. Here's the little curve I would put on the Tyreek Hill discussion that we're kind of working into all of this. I'm thrilled to see the receivers getting separation on these plays, because that was a real concern before we could see the all-22.
Yeah.
I do think this offense misses Tyreek Hill in one element that we have not yet discussed.
Great.
I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is at a place with any of those guys where he can see the sliver of separation and then just say, I know that I'm going to put the ball here and you're going to get it. And he had that with Tyreek Hill. So now this is the offensive line is the biggest culprit from the offense and against the Colts. I don't think that's even a conversation anymore. I'm on your side with this one. But in the realm of Patrick Mahomes and the pass catchers, the trust that they build all together, I think there is something about predictive separation and the trust that then the guy will make the play when the ball is there. I wonder if the separation was evident enough for Patrick Mahomes in this game, because those guys have to prove more to Mahomes than Tyreek Hill did. If Tyreek Hill is in a position where Mahomes knows, oh, well, he's about to plant his foot here, and then in 2 more steps he's going to have a sliver of separation, then in 2 more steps he's going to be wide open, that ball leaves his hand before he's ever in the break. And I just don't know if Patrick Mahomes is ready for that with Marquez Valdes-Scantling or even Juju, who I think he does have a pretty good rapport with already. None of that is to say the Chiefs made a mistake by trading away Tyreek Hill. I just think there are still some growing pains of that because I don't know that Mahomes is as locked in right now, which makes sense. We're 3 games in to a new season with new pass catchers. But I do think you can attribute some of the, not even miscommunications or misfirings, but just not a total subconscious trust in each other because his most reliable wide receiver for his entire career is just not here anymore.
Are you good with me separating into two different categories there? One being, I agree with you on that point, the predicted separation. And I think of the Bills game where he throws the ball to Tyreek, who then runs for the 70-yard touchdown with under 2 minutes to go, that when Mahomes released the ball, there was a defender between he and Tyreek Hill, and he knew where Tyreek was going to be. And when Tyreek caught the ball, it was like, yeah, he had like a 1.5 yard separation, and then he ran. But when Mahomes threw the ball, it was part of the pushback on the whole Tua. Mahomes is Tua doesn't throw that ball. Sorry. He's not throwing that ball in that spot with that velocity and hitting Tyreek right there so then Tyreek can run. It's not happening. So to that degree, I think that's one part of the conversation of no Tyreek with the Chiefs is, does he hit Tyreek if he's running the MVS route? Right? Is that a touchdown? And people had pointed that out online, and I'm like, I agree. With that specific play, maybe that is a touchdown because Tyreek runs underneath it, or Mahomes is used to throwing deep to a Tyreek Hill, something like that. That relationship of maybe trust and expected separation of, I know he's going to be there, I'll throw it right now, I think is one part of the conversation. Another part of the conversation is, are the wide receivers good enough without Tyreek Hill to even be able to do some things and not just be generic and a bunch of Demarcus Robinsons out there? And while I totally agree on the Tyreek Hill part of it, that there is an element of, I'm just going to throw it because I expect this guy to be here, I also think when people say, well, there's no Tyreek Hill, that's what you get when you don't have wide receivers that can do stuff. You got Patrick Mahomes that's holding the ball and nobody's gaining separation. I think there was plenty of separation that if Mahomes had more time to throw the ball, Juju won. There was a few Juju plays in there that he was open and he won. MVS made his defender fall down. There was a cornerback on MVS, and he gave a jab step, and the guy turned his hips, and then MVS cut to the right, and the guy tried to stay with him, and he fell. Just fell down. That's winning. That's one-on-one. You got man coverage, and that guy falls. Okay, so there are those things that are happening in the game, but as Patrick Mahomes was saying, in that one person here, one person there, one person there, when somebody's not on the same page, it looks like the Colts. When people are on the same page, it looks like the Cardinals. And I think the Chiefs were very close to looking like the Cardinals game against the Colts.
I agree with that. And I do have one MVS stat that I can tell you after the break.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
It's hot out
It's okay.
here. My knee pits are sweating. I'd love a little breeze on them.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, Mick Shaffer will be our guest coming up in the next hour. Some Shot Clock reviews, and you know what I'm going to do for Shot Clock reviews? Figure out what I'm going to do for Shot Clock reviews starting now.
Making this weekly really has brought some challenges. We got 4 of us to spread it out. Last week we only did 1 each.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
I'll figure it out. I'll just try to think back to things that have happened over the last few days.
Really
And the
helps
weekend
to
that
write them
was.
down over the week, which I have also not been doing the last couple of weeks, but that does really help. I remember that helping.
I did it last week, and then we ended up only having 1. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I had 2 of them. I do that all the time with Learn Funniest Best. Like, I typically show up with like a few learns, a couple of funniest, and a few bests. I try to do that over the weekend and remember to do that, because if I don't write them down or send them to my notes, then I'll never remember them. I got to start doing a Shot Clock reviews. But we'll do that in the next hour.
What are we going to do?
With Mick Shaffer.
Shot Clock reviews?
We're going to review
Oh, God. Oh, no. I don't have any.
Well,
Hi, guys. Are you struggling with erectile?
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I have lots of amoebas and bacteria swimming up in me.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, The Zone. One more hour to go here on this Wednesday. So we're in Petro of the programs. Got you heading up until 6 o'clock as we'll hear from the Chiefs coordinators tomorrow. So Dave Tobe, Steve Spagnuolo, and Eric Bieniemy. Should be an interesting press conference tomorrow. Dave Tobe, a lot of questions there. Eric Bieniemy, he and Patrick Mahomes has been a national topic
Two
as
of them
well.
probably want to bring some bourbon up to the dais
and
there.
Steve Spagnuolo will actually be there early, waiting for his turn. It's like my turn. Am I ready to go? When do you guys want me? I'll just hang out over here. I'm just gonna hang out over here.
Good morning, guys. Or is it good afternoon? Oh, it's good morning. I'm an hour early. So.
Is it still morning? Is it still morning? Yeah. Well, yeah. You're here at 9 o'clock. I mean, we're not talking till 11:45, Steve. I'm just ready. Now,
Can I do two presses today?
Is it still morning?
Do one now, do one later?
All right. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one because there'll be a lot of questions and things like that are asked.
Be the longest Tobe presser ever. Because he's usually the third, and it's usually it's like 4 or 5 questions quick, and he's great to talk to. He'll answer your questions, and he's a funny guy. He'll drop in some anecdotes, some one-liners, but I don't know how many of those will exist tomorrow, and it might be maybe 14 to 15 questions.
Well, I was disappointed to hear that Ronald Jones is sick, so he was excused from absence today. Excused from practice. His absence was excused. He is not going to go to detention. He's not just
not in ISS.
He's not in ISS. No. And so I was hoping that this would be the week that they activated Ronald Jones, and maybe he still is active. Maybe he gets over his sickness soon and can play, but. I've seen enough from Pacheco to say that I don't think he needs to be active just to be a kick returner. I think that they could find somebody else to do a little bit better job of just taking a knee when the ball's in the end zone every single time. 2 yards deep, let me give it a shot. 14-yard line, maybe don't do that again. And, I'd like to see Ronald Jones in short yardage situations, see what he can do down inside the goal line. So I was I hate to hear that he's not at practice because he's sick. So maybe they'll see him. And, he's going up against his old team in the Bucs. Mm-hmm. Maybe he does want to score a touchdown or 3, And the Chiefs could certainly use some help down inside the goal line or down inside the red zone. They were 6 of 6 against the Cardinals in converting red zone trips to touchdowns. They are 3 of 7 since.
Wow. 3 of 7.
3 of 7 since then.
And then of those 4... that resulted in non-touchdowns. How many were
2 field goals and a miss? Yeah. 2 field goals, a missed field goal. So there's the 3, and then
they have a 4th down in there.
I'm trying to purge all this.
Was the fake field goal? Did that result? Was that the result of a red zone trip?
That was their last.
That was too far out.
Play. Well, let me just see my notes that I wrote down on Monday. So I'll go ahead and tell you.
I keep thinking that I'm almost over the game as a whole, and then we do something like this, and I start having backslides in my development for this game.
It happens. Yeah, you should backslide that. You never know.
Andy's only 2-6 all time against the Colts. You know that? Gotta be his worst win percentage against the team.
Yeah, it's weird that that the Colts have just been that, and people brought that up last week. Like, well, what about it's the Colts?
Peyton Manning.
Yeah, that's probably
agreed. But it's like, what about the? But they had
the last
Andrew
2
Luck,
times they
had
lost
Mariota,
to him.
They had Brissett.
Not
they
the
had
time
Matt
they
Ryan.
lost to him in the playoffs.
Yes, I mean Mariota, Andrew Luck, Brissett, Matt Ryan. Like
those last 3 losses should not have come.
Yeah, and it's like somebody brought that up last week, but I just dismissed it outright. Just like, well, it's not the same. It's different teams, right? I know it's the uniform and everything. It's a different team, but. It might be kryptonite. I don't know. Just don't see the Colts ever again. Certainly would help. That'd be fine.
Told Matt Derrick if you scrape the horseshoe off their helmet, that they would just be any other team. And then the game proceeded to continue to be one of those snake bit games where you start wondering, is there like a hex that's been cast upon the Chiefs to constantly lose to this blue horseshoe?
Like the Jacoby Brissett one. I mean, Mariota's the crazy one because you had the ball batted in the air and he caught it for a touchdown, all that stuff. But the fact that Jacoby Brissett quarterbacks a team that wins in Arrowhead when Patrick Mahomes' team scores 13, and he had one leg, and he was hobbled with his ankle.
And Mahomes' teams had never scored under 26 points per game.
Yeah.
That was
in
the
a game.
breaker on that. Yeah.
And they were cruising along, right? 4-0. I maintain that wasn't that Travis Kelce's 30th birthday party the night before?
You think Patrick Mahomes broke his ankle at Travis Kelce's
No, I
birthday
think
party?
they all
Oh,
were
okay.
pretty
I see.
sluggish that game.
That's bold.
I'm pretty sure that was the Travis Kelce 30th birthday game.
Took a whole team effort with that one.
Yeah,
a whole team to do that one. I'm trying to see if the downs. No, the downs. The last play was at the 24. The field goal was
You know
at
better
the
than
7,
to
the
ask Jason
touchdown.
questions like that, Mick. This is
Yeah,
your
you're
fault.
gonna have this happen.
I do have this is back from January 2021, but I have Andy Reid's record here against every team on this list. The Bengals were 2-3-1. That one's gotten worse, probably, right? 2-4-1. That's his one tie from the Eagles. That would be 2-5-1 now, right? Depending on, like I said, January 2021. Yeah. So against the Bengals, not great. 3-1 against the 3-0 against the Chiefs. That one probably won't change if I had to guess. Good performance there.
Hope not.
Colts were 3-6. 1-1 in the playoffs. So add another one.
So it's 3-7 now. Okay.
Against the Colts specifically?
Mhm.
Yeah. Speaking of 3 of 7, I'm still going through to see where the the 4 that they did not convert when they got into the red zone.
Not a lot of losing
there.
records here, believe it or not.
That is kind of surprising.
6-8 against the Cardinals. Now 7-8. Clawing back up.
Yeah, so you had 2 field goals. So you had a field goal against the Chargers when they got to the 1-yard line on 4th and 1. Then they got down to the 13-yard line. They kicked the field goal against the Chargers as well. And then you had the field goal in this game in which they got on 4th and 2, and then you had the missed field goal. That was there. So those were the 4.
So 3 field goals and a missed.
So three field goals, a missed field goal, and then the
Solved
other 3 were actually touchdowns, but still 6 of 6 to now go 3 of 7. And while 3 of 7 is bad, obviously, if they converted one more, if they were 4 of 7, that would be their red zone percentage of a year ago with touchdowns, which wasn't great, by the way, which was less than stellar, and it was not good enough for how good this offense typically is. So, yeah, that obviously has to improve, and some of those are they kicked a field goal from the 2-yard line, they kicked a field goal from the 1-yard line. I mean, those have to be touchdowns.
Those are way different than okay, we're lining up at the 18.
You got to the 8. You're on 3rd down
it's
and
a 35-yard field goal.
3rd down and 10 at the 25-yard line. You got to the 18-yard line and then kicked a field goal. Well, see, you didn't. You got to the red zone.
When your field goals are shorter than the old school, or at least the college extra points,
right?
Okay, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, when you're kicking a field goal shorter than what is now an extra point in the NFL, you shouldn't be doing that. But he's done that twice, and I think that's an indication of what he thinks of the offense and certainly the offensive line. And I think he said today in his press conference, without saying it in his press conference, in that, the Colts were fine, but we sucked on offense, on the offensive line. Because he said...
Sum up.
Yeah, he said, the offensive line, he said, Indy had a good scheme, but then he said multiple times, we got to take care of business. Which to me is Andy Reid's way of saying, yeah, they played fine. They had a good scheme, but we got to do our freaking job, man. We've got to take care of business. What should have been done wasn't done. But I'm Andy Reid, and I just want everybody to know they had a really good scheme, and we're always looking forward to the challenge of playing this team that's never won a game in the last 4 years. Okay, we're looking forward to it. Good scheme. We got to take care of business on the offensive line. Yeah, he's not happy with what he's seeing from this group because they left a lot of points on the board against the Colts with the play or lack thereof.
And they're banged up a little bit too, but everybody's banged up. Everybody's going to be banged up.
Which is what gives me hope because I don't expect it to be back-to-back games. Do you? I mean, is this a trend?
No.
If you're guessing right now, is this a trend of where the offensive line is struggling? Unless it's something to do with injury.
That's the thing.
This maybe isn't the best defense to go up for to try to have a bounce-back game.
Well, this would be the defense to go up against to say, okay, how good are you? Where's your pride?
Yeah.
Are you because the Colts have good defensive front, right? I mean, obviously, but the Bucs have a really good one. If it's not an injury thing and it's a production thing or just a performance thing, then they should respond.
I think that the special team stuff, I'm not worried about being a recurring issue. I think that was bad luck at a bad time. They're also having bad performances in several places. I am not going into this week as, yes, the offensive line will set things straight. I'm going into this week maybe for the first time since early last year, where I think the number one place my eyes are going to be early in that game are going to be on the Chiefs' offensive line.
Yeah, me too.
Eyes open. Not necessarily. I'm not going to take any priors into this game, I don't think. I was shook enough by the performance against the Colts that I'm not going to say I'm looking for them to bounce back. I'm going to say I'm looking for them to bounce. Just see what direction they go in, I don't know. But they're going to hit the ground again. What will their trajectory be on the way back up?
It didn't take long for our commentary around the Chargers of the Chiefs just find ways to make plays and they win games and they did that against the Chargers and maybe they stole one but they just simply find ways to. And I know the second half of the Bengals is sticking out like a sore thumb, understandable, but through the most part of Patrick Mahomes' career, predominantly this team just find ways to win. And maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's just know how to win. And then less than a week later, they can't make a play that can secure them a victory, whether it's punching it in from the 3-yard line when they were up 14-10, or punching it in from closer as well, whether it's making a 34-yard field goal, whether it's not getting a taunting / unsportsmanlike penalty. All of those things, just one of those things happened. They didn't find a way to make plays, and the Colts did. Colts got extra life, and they went down and scored. It reminded me a little bit of Tennessee in 2019. That was the game that came to mind, was Tennessee, when there was the missed field goal, there was the botched field goal snap, there was the 4th and 1 that then they threw to Blake Bell.
That was after a Thursday night game, too.
Was it really?
Yes.
2-8 career against the Titans for Andy Reid. That's as of
That's gotta be the worst.
January 2021.
So
in fact, you know who alerted me to that, actually, Mick, to make sure I went and checked my notes again?
Nick Jacobs.
Harold Kuntz.
Oh.
I think that's 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah, just keep mentioning
his name. I think every
other
time
guys from other stations, no big deal.
Every time you mention my mom, I'm going to mention Harold.
Okay. Wow.
That's weird.
Harold's getting lots of mentions then.
It's an odd recourse.
It's all I have.
You mentioned my mom. I'm coming right back at you, and I'm going to mention Harold.
Here's the only difference. I only fake care about hearing Harold's name. You really care about hearing Michelle.
Don't worry, she's safe right now.
Yeah,
she's 5 and 6 under Andy Reid.
She's in an
after
undisclosed
Thursday
location in Florida. I'm not going to tell you where they're currently barricaded up.
So Andy Reid should never coach in the AFC South because he can't beat the Colts or the Titans.
There you go.
So don't do that. Don't go and coach the Texans or the Jags. I mean, he dominates the Jags.
I mean, those are just like life lessons in general. Don't coach the Jags or the Texans.
That's a good point.
So.
Although Doug Peterson is already tied for 5th in all-time wins with the Jags.
We get to 4th this week. All alone.
Unbelievable, man. He can get to 4th. That's so great. He's 4th all-time with 3 wins.
How many coaches have they had in their history? It can't be more than like 6 or 7.
The thing is, though, they've had a number of interim coaches
that they're not
so
counting.
Like this coach has 1 win
them.
or 2
We're
wins.
gonna have a great trip down memory lane. I'm gonna make sure you guys remember some dudes right now.
See?
I'm excited about this.
I went and looked up the 3 of 7 with the red zone trips, and now we're gonna find out these different coaches for the Jags.
It's not that many.
Tom Coughlin.
Tom Coughlin was their first head coach.
Doug Marrone.
Way too late. I'm going chronologically here.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Tom Coughlin, 68 wins, which actually ties their next head coach, who more recently has been anonymously saying things about Patrick Mahomes, allegedly.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Del Rio.
Jack Del Rio.
So Tom Coughlin and Jack Del Rio both ended up with 68 wins.
Del Rio had that many wins?
He was there for a while, and he had more losses than Coughlin also, by about a full season's
But
worth.
they went to the AFC Championship game. Somehow.
So the AFC Championship game years were a coach removed because Mike Mularkey got 1 season in 2012. And then Gus Bradley's team got a few years there. He went 14-48, Gus Bradley. Then I believe, when was the Blake Bortles year?
2017.
That's right. Okay. Doug Marrone. 2017 through 2020.
That's why Doug Marrone immediately came to my mind, is because he was the coach.
That's right. 2-1 in the playoffs. And then Urban Meyer for 13 games. He coached fewer games than Mike Mularkey. And then Doug Peterson. Those are just the full-time ones. That was not even including
Peterson's
interims.
just behind Del Rio, Coughlin, and who?
Let me...
Bradley.
Marrone?
Bradley.
Marrone, then it would have to be.
Bradley and Marrone, then.
Yeah.
Doug Marrone had 20. Doug Marrone went 23-43, and then Gus Bradley was 14-48. So I mean, there's a chance that Gus Bradley moves down a notch.
He'll be fifth all alone with the next win.
That's
not fourth.
Right. Yeah. Mel Tucker.
Mel Tucker
had 2 wins in his 5 games right before Mike Mularkey came in and won 2 games in a full 16-game season.
And now he's
Darrell Bevell got a little. Darrell Bevell got a shot there last year after Urban Meyer. Not a lot of interims, actually. Mostly just bad head coach hires.
You would think those were interim won-loss records.
Yeah, you would think.
In fact, they were just fired quickly.
So that's the ranking of wins and losses. Here's how it's gone in their history. Coughlin, Del Rio, Mel Tucker, Mularkey, Bradley, Doug Marrone, Urban Meyer, Bevell, Peterson. That's where they're at right now.
Incredible.
And you've got
What a
multiple
franchise.
Super Bowl winning coaches there. Multiple coaches in their franchise have won a Super Bowl. Not with them. But yeah. But that team could be 3-0. Okay? That Jags team has a real argument to be 3-0. They were up 22-14 in the fourth quarter against the Commanders.
I really wanted
and
to
they lost that game, and now they're 2-1. How do you lose to the Commanders when you're up by 8 points?
I really just wish I would have gone and said Jags in the AFC South. I really, that was the one upset I really thought about pulling. I just let it go. I wanted to believe. Trevor Lawrence, good at football. Urban Meyer, horrible to be around. They have all the ingredients.
If you're picking right now, are you picking the Jags to win the South?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Who have the Colts beat?
They haven't played anybody, though. That's the thing.
Play a good team, Indy.
Ain't played nobody.
Win a game. It's a good team. Matt Ryan.
Playing all these
shut out by the Jags.
All these guarantee games, these bye games that they've got there. It's ridiculous.
Matt Ryan, put some earplugs in and go play a game.
It's interesting because Cynthia Frelund had talked about that, Chiefs losing to the Colts, and we were discussing a lot of different things, but maybe it was sort of a passing comment when she said, in a team that's probably still going to win that division,
she said
the Colts.
Yeah.
She said that, which, piqued my interest with one of the 50 other things that we could talk about from the conversation and things like that is, like, if I'm picking now, like, I think the Jags have a legit defense, and they have an offense that at least has some organization to it, and Doug Peterson knows what he's doing, and they've got some talent there as well, that, I think they could certainly win the division. I think the Colts are better than how they've played, and they may figure it out at some point as well. And then they may win. And then the Titans, at least have the pedigree of being that. And maybe Derrick Henry got it rolling last week in the win against the Raiders in a team that is 0-3 that could be 3-0. That's what's so fascinating about the AFC. We started off the conversation, Mick, today with, we talked about how crazy the AFC could be this year, right? 1 through 14 thinks that they can go to the playoffs. 15 and 16, Jags and Texans, probably not, although now throwing the Jags.
I would have put, the Dolphins in there at least at 13 or 14 or something like that.
But
now they're at the top.
standings don't exactly represent where, this is what we thought it was going to be, but it does sort of represent the overall thought and the parity and how good top to bottom outside of a couple of teams it was going to be, because you've had so many close games and bounces one way or another that have resulted in a team either being 3-0 or 0-3, that Denver could be 0-3 or 3-0. The Raiders could be 0-3 or 3-0, and all in between there. The Bills and Dolphins, final 20, 30 seconds. If the Bills get in field goal range and kick the field goal, the Bills are 3-0 and the Dolphins are 2-1. And it's not like, wow, look at Miami. They're 3-0, only undefeated team left in the AFC. Bills, what's wrong with them? They get a field goal. It's Buffalo, didn't play great. They still went to a Miami team that's good and won. Miami could also be 1-2. They were down 35-14 in the fourth quarter to Baltimore. Yes. And then, of course, Buffalo has the ball down 2 late in the fourth quarter. Like, they could be 1-2. They're not. They're 3-0. But if you played the season 10 different times, we went back and played it 10 different times, I'd love to look at all the different standings after 3 weeks, what they would look like.
We should find a league in any sport where we're allowed to do that. Let's run live simulations.
That's right.
Forget about the computer, okay?
Start it over, guys. One more time. We're going to go back and play all these games again.
Chiefs could run the gamut from 3-0 down to 1-2. They
Absolutely.
couldn't be 0-3, but they could be 1-2.
They could definitely
Very
be 1-2.
easily.
And they could easily be 3-0. But they are not. It is the position that you are. But I think that's in the Bengals could be 1-2. Or it could be 3-0, I mean. They're 1-2. They could be 3-0. They lost in overtime to the Steelers, in which they missed an extra point and a field goal, and they had a 3-point loss to Dallas with Cooper Rush. Like, those are games that they should win. But they lost both of them by a field goal. They could be 3-0. Like, you could be talking about Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincy, and Kansas City sitting 3-0. And nobody would have blinked their eye at that. But you've got a play here, a play there. Chiefs and Colts, somehow that happens. Baltimore blows a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter. Buffalo can't get it together in their final drive. Cincinnati loses 2 games by a field goal. And it's that close to then going, well, Cincinnati's 1-2, so good luck with that. Buffalo, they are clearly mortal. Baltimore might score 80 in a game, but they also gave up 28 in one quarter against Miami. And the Chiefs just lost to the Colts and could have lost to the Chargers. So there is no one dominant team in the AFC.
Here's what you hope. What does everybody say when they throw out their Chiefs prediction record? They're like, 12-5. I think they're 13-4, but they're going to lose to somebody they shouldn't.
Always.
Right? Hopefully that's the one they lost who they shouldn't, but that's pretty early in the season, right? It's like burning your Yahtzee on the first roll.
I'm going to use my mulligan.
Hold on to that one till December, maybe.
It's the second hole. You're using your mulligan already?
What are we doing here?
Come on, man. You know what? And it worked out in their favor that it was a very head-scratching loss, but early in 2020, they lost to the Raiders at home. And that was the case.
Well, that was their first loss. It wasn't that early, though, right? Wasn't it?
It was their only loss with the starters that year.
Yes.
Because
was their only loss.
they were 14-2.
I want to say that was October. Was it not? Was it earlier than that?
Like I said, I don't remember what that... It felt earlier in the season.
If we volley back and forth long enough, computer boy over here.
It wasn't in September. It wasn't.
Computer boy's almost got it.
It wasn't one of the first 4 weeks because last year we were so shocked that they didn't start off 4-0 because they did the year before. But I felt like it was earlier in the season that it wasn't exactly like
week 5.
So week 5. So
they were 4-0 October. 4-0, lost on October 11th to the Raiders. Was that a little road trip for the Raiders afterwards?
That was
around the stadium.
That was
what I thought.
Yeah, they took the lap.
So they lost that game, dropped to 4-1, and then the next game they lost was to the Chargers in Week 17.
Yes.
In which
nobody played.
How dare you? How dare you say nobody played?
Some guys played.
Justin
in
Herbert
which
played.
Chad Henne had an excellent 23 for 32 performance for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks.
See? And he got outdueled by Justin Herbert because Justin Herbert comes in. It's Arrowhead East for the Chargers. Or excuse me, it's whatever the SoFi East. It's what it is for them. It's like, come on, man. Of course, that would be perfect because you aren't even the home tenants in your own stadium.
But I was look,
you're also the visitors in your home stadium.
It was SoFi East because it was filled with Chiefs fans.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a great way of saying it. It is absolutely just like a
like
home
playing
game
at
for you.
home.
So maybe that's this. Maybe it's the early head scratcher, like what in the heck happened? And then they just get back into a rhythm and play good football and not what we saw last year when the losses started to pile up and you're like, this team is fractured. This team is broken. What happens moving forward? I have zero read on the Bucs game this weekend.
Well, I mean, look, last year when they were losing those games, it was less just colossal back-breaking plays like we saw in Indy. It was just, okay, this offense has been slowed, and the defense is, kind of being the defense, although they turned it around. They actually won games toward the middle of the season, and so that was a different loss, absolutely, for me on Sunday. One, I don't think will be a trend or will be repeated where it's basically every other special teams play is just resulting in your head and your hands.
Or like Kelsey in the podcast with his brother and just giving his thoughts.
What did he say? Let's take a break.
Well, he was Jason was saying like, "Oh, you guys lost to the Colts," and then Travis Kelsey said,
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I'm good at enjoying myself.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll get some shot clock reviews here in just a second, but...
Oh, crap. Will we?
Yeah, Mick's going to go fourth. Mick's going to go fourth.
I thought for sure you already had them because we said going to break, we'll do shot clock reviews next. We got into the break and you didn't say anything.
I've been glossing over a lot that you've said.
You didn't say, oh, crap, or anything like that. Yeah, you did. You glossed right over it.
Yeah.
I Freudian slipped it, and Josh Brisco just decided not to say anything and let it slide. That is me saying, I was combining my Titans and Colts losses, and I'm like, and then you got Mariota with the touchdown pass to himself, and then many texters and on Twitter as well saying, hey, Mariota didn't play for the Colts.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I know why. Because I was talking about all the crazy Colts losses, and then I threw in Mariota for some reason, and you heard it, and you didn't correct me. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Yeah,
he might be next year. Don't worry.
So he will actually. That's perfect. That's perfect, Beards.
That's what I'm just thinking ahead. I'm having a flash forward.
Excellent, boy, Beards. That is salient. That is a great point. Here's my mea culpa. I heard it twice. I heard it both times. In retrospect, I think maybe the first time I wasn't sure if you were just putting together like AFC losses, and the second time you said it, I had the very distinct thought of he just misspoke. White helmet, AFC South, blue pants, whatever. And I just thought people listening will generally understand what you're getting at. I'm just gonna make this be a play on. We got to get to a break. All of that. Where I really, really erred,
it's not a play on.
Is I have to jump in if it's something that the text line will correct you on, which is going to be pretty much everything. But, if you say Juju Smith-Schuster, number 8 for the Chiefs, I'm probably not going to go number 9. I might sneak it in. I need to figure that out.
I think you should say number 9.
But if it's going to be a line to clear where the text line's going to correct you on it, I got to do it in real time. I work with a lot of people who make a lot of on-air mistakes, and I've had to kind of just filter my corrections, so I'm not just always hovering over your shoulder.
You're just going to call out Rudy like that right now?
Wow. That's not exactly what I was thinking of, Seth Kaiser. No. It could have been anybody, Seth. And so sometimes you gotta let the play on go. But I will admit, my post game report. I'm gonna talk to Tysher afterwards. I'm gonna let him have a few follow up questions with me. Yeah. But I will go ahead and say I should have probably blown the whistle there and just gone Titans.
But here's the thing. I also want to be corrected because then I'm like, why would I even say that? Sure. Because I'm getting confused. Like the Mariota Colts game where he threw the ball and a touchdown to himself was bad, but not nearly as bad as the Andrew Luck Titans game when he picked up the fumble and went into the end zone. That's the one that really hurt you, is that crazy comeback by the Titans when Andrew Luck scored from inside the 5-yard line.
Hey, Beards, I don't just do this with Mick.
I'm still not paying attention to his mistakes.
I don't always just do this for Mick, but it tends to work out that way. 1 o'clock hour or something. From Matt Derrick, didn't see Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones on the field for portion of practice open to media on Wednesday. Harrison Butker and Matthew Wright alternated on field goals. Tysher also says Chris Jones was not at practice for the limited time I was able to watch.
That's because he's still in timeout from those verbal assaults he did.
Sit in the corner.
Has anyone checked prison?
Has he checked? There's a chalkboard in there. I will not say.
It's Bart Simpson.
I just want to see. What did he say? What was it?
It's Bart Simpson in the credits with the Simpsons. It's just writing on the chalkboard. I will not say abusive language to
about
Matt Ryan.
Tom Brady to Matt Ryan.
I gave you credit on, was it Monday or yesterday? I gave you credit. I said, and on the air, I said, Mick Shaffer had the great line on Sunday Sound
I
Off.
stole it from somebody on Twitter.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
But
hilarious.
Either way, but you asked Kent Swanson on the air, you said, what did Chris Jones say about Tom Brady to Matt Ryan that got that flag?
Great joke.
It's awesome. It's so true. Because he's going to get like 10 flags this weekend. You don't want to look at Tom Brady wrong there.
Especially because Tom hasn't been as good. You don't want to hurt his feelings.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and he's got some issues off the field now, so he might be a little more sensitive to hurt feelings. So you just want to be aware of that.
Sticking with this just because everybody associated with 810 who's at practice now is Jesse Newell. Chiefs Chris Jones not spotted at practice today. Chiefs release injury report later. Whenever everybody's on the same thing, it doesn't sound like it's one of those instances where somebody on the sideline, not to name any names, said he'll be out here in a second. You guys just won't see him. I don't know. I don't know, man. Everybody's tweeting about it, and it makes me nervous, even though Andy Reid did not mention that he would be any sort of limitation at all.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't make me nervous because anytime there's somebody not at practice, I feel like every single media member that's out there will then tweet the same thing. Didn't see said person, didn't see this person, instead of like one particular person for the collective saying, didn't see this guy.
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, yeah, well, he said it already. We don't need to all put it out there. But I think everybody individually might have different followers and stuff like that, just putting it out.
This is pretty deep in the meta of covering the Chiefs, but my hunch there is if Chris Jones was only not there for the first few minutes, like when Frank Clark was late for getting with an illness or something, we found that out very, very shortly thereafter. And now, as everybody leaves practice, it's just all getting put out. I don't know. I don't have any information beyond what I've already read. Just something to keep an eye on because you want to talk about a big loss for the defense. If there's anything going on with Chris Jones. Again, maybe his feelings were just hurt. Maybe Matt Ryan wrote him a sternly worded letter. I don't know. But I just want to put that out there since it is, Chris Jones.
I like the timeout.
That's a good one.
Theory. I think that's probably a good one. All right, so let's get into
I've got mine now. You guys stalled
I figured,
long enough.
Look at
shot
that.
clock reviews. Who wants to go first today?
I'll bat lead off.
I'm looking at you, Josh.
Okay,
yes.
great. I didn't know who you were looking at.
Looking right at you, Josh.
I don't mind batting lead off. I can do that for us. And I want to talk about a music album. It's going to have a little twist at the end. I'll give you the twist before 24 seconds are up. But this album is called Decide. The artist's name is Joe, spelled D-J-O.
Give me a break.
Here's the thing. The first album from this artist I found very compelling. You could tell a younger artist, but had some influences from sort of mid-stage Beatles, some sort of Sgt. Pepper's vibes, some sort of Magical Mystery Tour vibes. That sort of ethereal kind of feeling brought into some of those real crunchy vocals you get from like your 70s microphones and everything. The album Decide is a bit of an evolution of that that's a little more well-produced. It's the album of can I get a rebound on this one? Did we get rebounds?
Can we get a rebound?
It's the twist. I forgot the twist.
A reset.
I got so excited about this album. It is Joe Keery's band who plays Steve in Stranger Things.
Oh, yes.
It's really good, and I would recommend it to people who have any interest in that sort of era of Beatles to see kind of where that evolves into modern music. I'm giving this album and really the whole Joe project, Joe Keery, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. Here we go.
Josh's serious music review. That's basically why Shot Clock Review started, is because I wanted an excuse to be a music stop for 24 seconds. And that time I did it for 48 seconds.
To Joe.
Yeah, how about that? Well, did you score on this possession? Because you got the offensive rebound.
I did. I had to put the board back up. I think I at least got a foul in there somewhere.
Let's hope. I would call a foul on that one.
Yeah, fair enough.
Beards, Mick, me. Who goes next? Huh?
Do I just get to pick?
No, let's make Jason go next.
All right, let's make Jason go next. Beard wasn't ready.
I'm going to go with have a Shot Clock Review on relying on kickers. Enough with any level relying on kickers. I don't understand coaches that do that. And you look at, there are so many different things that happen in the Mizzou game where it comes down to a kick. And yes, he should have made the kick, but it's a college kid. The snap could be bad. The hold can be bad. He could push it to the right for some odd reason. And you've got Matt Amendola. Figure it out with Patrick Mahomes or anything but letting a kicker decide your fate. I give it a 1 out of 10. Which is probably what Matt Amendola might make moving forward.
Cross that one off my list for talking about kickers. I had a few options today. That's a good one.
Okay, very good.
It's 1 out of 10 right there.
I hand off to Mick.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's make it a baton passing.
Yeah, sure. I'll do my Shot Clock Review on the atmosphere for the first time ever, the big atmosphere around a KU football game.
Yeah.
So I got there at 7 a.m., 7:30 in the morning. Wow. A lot of friends there hanging out with them and their kids. And it was so festive and it was so fun. It was good to see so many people there. It was packed. They sold the place out. There was an ESPN reporter talking to some of us. It was so much fun to see. How much time do I have left?
I don't know.
There were booze all over the place, and it was great. That was the best part of it. Booze all over the place. Tents outside. You can get booze inside. It was 120 proof out of 10.
I can still smell it in your breath, actually. I was going to say something.
That time we had booze at college games.
Making Aaron Ladd be out there
to work.
Opposite Mizzou having the problems that Jason just partially referred to.
Yeah,
is
but
really
you know
cruel.
what? No, it's great because he didn't have to.
He got to watch good football.
Yeah, I had to make him be an adult. It was,
yeah, I mean,
good point.
Look, I was watching my son play in a baseball tournament during the Mizzou game, It was great because then I just checked in every once in a while. I saw the fumble through the end zone, looked down. I didn't see how they got to overtime, but I looked down, saw the fumble through the end zone, said, well, that's definitely a fumble. Turn that thing off. Here we go, guys. Come on.
That's definitely a Mizzou game. Okay.
Here we go. Hey, you know what? Now you see it. Now you're on it, guys.
Mick, do you want to hand your baton to anybody who hasn't gone yet? Really, I think it'd be anybody. Maybe Beards. Could be anybody.
I'll throw a dart and say Beards.
Sure. I'll talk about a new video game I've been playing. It's called Deathloop. So you have what? So you
Big
have
game.
8 targets you got to take out in this day. Whenever the day resets, or if you die, your progress restarts and you lose all your weapons and trinkets and stuff. But you keep all the information you've learned because you're trying to like group everybody together, so it's easier to take everybody out and you can do it within the whole day. I'm enjoying it so far. It's a little bit of like just backtracking and doing the same areas you've done over and over again, but I'm enjoying it. I give it like an 8.5 out of 10 so far.
What are you planning on?
Xbox.
Oh, yeah, you got the new guy.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Which series is it?
X.
That doesn't mean anything.
It's Xbox. What other series would it be? R?
Well, the
Series
S.
R box.
Series S.
S box?
Well, no, it's the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X.
They've been very bad about naming.
Yeah,
their
I want to make
consoles.
fun of you for being old, but I really want to make fun of Microsoft for naming it the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X.
Because where's TUV and W?
This is after
Next
having
series.
the Xbox One X.
Well, and then you have the Xbox 360, which
Yeah.
was
That
not
was
the
good. That was a good
359th
name.
plus one.
That was a good name.
It's
Yeah.
confusing.
But you know what the issue is? Once you start naming them that, it's like conferences. Once you name the conference with a number in
That's
there,
right.
Yeah.
now you're kind of screwed. Now you're sticking with the branding of the Big 10, the Big 12, all of that stuff. Just go with different names because once you go S, the next would be T.
Yeah.
But then you jump to X.
It's S for small because it's a smaller version.
So it doesn't
X
have a
X
disk
for
drive,
X?
right?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
then X is for Xbox. When the Xbox alphabet, X is actually the first letter in the alphabet. That part I made up.
Oh.
Beards, I'm going to ask you this question because you're the one that actually probably should answer this question.
Sure.
Are we all doing 2 rounds of shot clock reviews today, or are we going to go one and done again and save some good ones for next week?
If we want to make it quick, we can do
You
one more
know
round.
this show, man.
Yeah,
Wanna
let's go.
make
We'll go
it
quick.
quick.
I got a second one.
If we're going to make
got a
it
quick one.
quick.
Don't waste it.
All
Don't
right.
waste it. I got a
All right,
quick
head
one.
off the baton then, Beards.
Josh, go.
All right, I want to talk about something that Mick reminded me of just a little bit ago when he mentioned Yahtzee. I'm talking about Clubhouse Games, 51 worldwide classics on Nintendo Switch. 51 games. Look at this, Mick. 51 different board games. We're talking Mancala. We're talking Yahtzee. Little Connect 4. Some I guess I would say Asian games like that I didn't know the origins of that I learned about internationally. International games from all around the world. It's actually wonderful. Also, the 2-player mode's pretty good for games like Yahtzee. For games, I taught Renee how to play backgammon because we got to play it on here. I do have a backgammon board if anybody wants to, go meet at a park and just play some nice backgammon. That's my old man future. But this game rules on the Switch. 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, nice.
8.5. I got some, 1.5 worth of squabbling.
All right.
8.5.
Very good. Is that the Switch X or the Switch S?
So that's the Nintendo Switch, which is different than the Nintendo Switch Lite or the Nintendo Switch OLED, which came out more recently. Similar to the Steam Deck, which should arrive for me on Thursday. I'll have a review on that next week.
Remember when Mick, when we used to have Nintendo?
Yeah, I do.
And then a Sega.
Well,
And then,
you were
the
either
Sega Genesis?
Nintendo camp or Sega camp.
Well, sometimes it was Nintendo to Sega, sometimes it was Nintendo to Super Nintendo.
And the Sega guys were like, "Oh, it's like the
Sega.
16-bit or whatever. It's the graphics are so much better." Like, I don't
Not
care.
your-
Your games are
Josh,
lame.
not your-
Okay, I got Duck Hunt.
Not your stupid 8-bit. Come on, man. Joshua, you handed the baton.
I'm going to
to.
hand it right back to you, Jason.
All right, so my shot clock review is about the pumpkin pie concrete at Andy's. It is unbelievable. It's out. Look, there is an entire genre of pumpkin spice at Starbucks, and you are missing the pumpkin part when it comes to this
Great point.
time of year.
Great take.
It's the pumpkin pie concrete at Andy's is quite literally the best dessert, ice cream, concrete, custard, whatever, that I've ever had. The pumpkin pie concrete is a easy 10 out of 10.
Okay, my little snack for Mickey
It
on
is
the way back to work.
unbelievable. And by the way, now that it's pumpkin pie concrete season, when I go to KSHB 41 every other Sunday, I take Warnell south to 435 to stop right in and say, hello, Andy, how are you? I pass the baton to Mick.
All right, my shot clock review is about my new standing desk at work.
Good. Excellent.
First day last week, I got it, and I loved it right away. You push the button, it goes right up. Your pictures don't fall. Just a steady climb all the way up. And I was so productive with it. I got so much extra work done, so many more activities. I had so much more energy. At one point, I kicked the chair away. I'm like, this is a revolution. I'm done making fun of standing desk people. This is going to be my future. I haven't used it since.
What do you
give it a 2.5 out of 10, which is the number of feet off the ground my desk currently sits.
I thought you were going to give it a 1 out of 10, which is the number of days you've used it since. 1 day out of 10.
I like to sit. Okay.
That was really.
All right.
You really got me there.
Who are you going to give the baton to this time?
We're going with Beards.
Oh, nice.
Or Nathan. Either one.
Ooh,
I am going to talk about watching Josh attempt to be a rancher yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm spoil a little bit of the video when it comes out, but let's just say Josh isn't quite cut out for it just yet.
I mean,
yet. You've got some growing to do. You drove the little four-wheeler or whatever it was pretty well right up until you were trying to feed everybody, and then it just kind of like fell out at the end.
Okay.
None of the cows wanted to eat from you, but of course Renee just had the swarm of them around her.
That's true.
Just eating straight out of her hands. It was like a 3 out of 10, but it was a 9 out of 10 experience for me.
Shout out to
you trying to be a ranger?
We were at Greengrass Cattle Company. We'll have a video out sometime soon across the 810 socials. But friends of the show, friends of Post Game, and just friends at Greengrass Cattle Co. They're excellent, and cows like Renee more than they like me, which makes sense because every animal likes Renee more than they like me. But I tried. I put on my denim jacket and put my best booted foot forward, and we'll have to review the game film. I'm afraid it won't have all my best highlights, but I think I'm going to come out of it okay.
Yeah, I would love to hear what Zach Greinke thinks of cows, because we know what he thinks of cats and dogs, that cat people cannot be trusted.
Totally agree.
And then to find out that he has 2 cats.
That's awesome.
That's perfect, Zach.
Really great.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Is Mick Shaffer a legend in KU journalism school?
Literally didn't know he went to KU.
Nobody asked me back. Everybody else gets asked back. I don't.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, hanging out with Mick Shaffer. He's presented by Kona Big Wave. Take a little break and single task tonight with the Big Wave Golden Ale from Kona Brewing Company. Do you have tentative plans to Minnesota right now, or are you just still waiting and seeing and planning the trip to Tampa for Sunday Night Football
I
on 41?
100% would rather drive to Minnesota than fly to Tampa.
Okay.
Because first of all, our flight is at 6 a.m. Saturday, which means getting up at like 4 or earlier. And then we fly to D.C., have a 2.5-hour layover, then go to Tampa, and then have to work after that. I would much rather drive the 6 or 7 hours to Minneapolis. But if I'm going to Minneapolis, that means there's been a lot of destruction and bad things happening in Tampa, so I do not want that. So I'll take one for the team. Right?
Good for you.
Yes, I would. I don't want, or maybe if they can just do like maybe a little bit of damage to the stadium and nobody gets hurt, and they just can't play the game there, they're gonna move it to Minnesota.
They just have one of those little tornadoes pops out, and it's
a hurricane the size of a tornado.
Are we gonna make it in time, Mick? Where you going? You navigating somewhere?
It's funny when you mentioned Andy's. I put an Andy's in the close. See, if there's one.
You
close
already
on
got
my-
your
on my
directions
drive.
ready to go to stop by?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
pumpkin pie. They bake the pumpkin pie
And by the way,
and break
the
it up
stupid
into
thing,
the concrete.
When you turn your phone off, stuff still is loud. Stuff will come out like that. I mean, my phone is not off, but I mean just silenced. It's silenced, but still, it just breaks through somehow. The silence.
Sometimes I feel like I'm aging really rapidly, and sometimes I feel like I'm just surrounded by 85-year-olds, and that was what an 85-year-old moment right there.
Yeah,
well, Josh brought up an interesting point earlier that
doesn't sound like me.
They may if even if it's not significant damage, like would they make a decision as a city of saying we need this game to be moved because we don't want to send resources to a stadium when we can do
That's exactly
other
it.
things here.
First of all, that's why they're not
Try to-
moving it to Miami or Jacksonville. They don't want to take emergency personnel away for a football game. And the same deal is if they need a lot of times stadiums are places of refuge.
Center point,
right?
For people gathering and sending
and so
people that-
absolutely. And if there's if they need it for any sort of reason, and if they need those emergency personnel, because there's a lot of police officers, there's a lot of ambulance, emergency personnel at football games that are needed, and if those are at all needed for any other way, I have the feeling they'll move it to Minnesota.
We've started seeing some videos also. It's right now still a little south of Tampa, but some of the clips that have come through of the water levels and all of that have been as extreme as they were concerned about. So there's going to be significant damage. It's just a question of where on the coastlines they're going to hit first.
All of it seems to be south of Tampa where the significant damage is going to hit. So everybody hopefully stay safe. And they said that they have not moved it as of this point. They're still planning on the game in Tampa.
I've heard it's going to be on Sunday no matter what.
Yes.
Sunday night.
Yep.
It's either Minneapolis or Tampa.
Yep, and I think they said as late as Friday they can decide.
It could be Friday,
to make that. We'll see. Andy Reid said they'll find out in the next couple days. He also said that the NFL's game report on Chris Jones was BS. He didn't say that, but when he said, I talked to Chris Jones, he's pretty honest with me. We're just going to move on. Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you, Mick. Program next.
Go get some custard.
Come watch.